And we are live. How are you guys doing? What are you guys doing here on a weekend? That's weird. You should be out there doing something else. All right. I'm happy to see you all. And we have Paul Wardy for some reason. Just wait till people notice Paul in the stream and be like, wait a second, why is this guy here? What time it is, But happy to have you all. Let's keep our journey. Let's keep going. I'm gonna start in hot. I'm just gonna go in mainly because I already warmed up with the team before we started the streaming. So there is that. I think Ricky, you were the last one, or was it Parker who made a test pass? Let me get latest from that branch. The goal here is to go as fast as possible and as efficient as possible to get a library out. And if we can't make it tonight, you guys gonna have to come in tomorrow. So Vicky, you're working weekends, and then Monday is gonna be off for so many reasons. But I'm gonna give the team kind of a day off to kind of recharge and. I wish people actually take the day off, on Monday. Nope, all PRs showing up and issues. The repository doesn't sleep, really.
We all know that in the business world, nothing gets done on a Monday. It's just the chaos from stupidity that's happened over the weekend.
That's right. That's true. People just go crazy, on Monday and be like, hey, over the weekend, I noticed that blah, blah, blah happened.
I wasn't watching my mailbox for 5 minutes, and this is an emergency. And it's like, no, it's not. It really isn't. But fine, I'll interrupt my day just for that.
That's right.
Everybody knows this is a familiar story.
It's a very, very familiar story, and I try as much as I can to make people kind of as much as possible. But if you're doing it for fun. It doesn't feel like work really anymore. So, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a test here for handling the URL not found, so invalid configurations. So I'm just going to create one in here, right? And I'm going to go and say invalid chat completion configuration exception. Okay, so this is when the URL is not found or whatever other configuration, like we can use this in the future for any potential configurations that are happening. Sharf says 2:20 a.m. here, have not slept yet again. Hopefully I don't crash. Let's go. Okay, I know a lot of people crash after this one, so we'll see. Okay, so here's an exception. And I am going to say, here is my exception. So we're going to take in the URL not found. By the way, Brian, what I noticed is that when the URL was bad, RESTful Sense didn't know how to translate it. At least with WireMock, it didn't know how to translate it to a URL not found. It translated it to a not found, just not found entity exception. So we might need to revisit that part. We might need to figure out. If there's any other things that we can use to distinguish between URL not found and entity not found, because today in the REST standard, they both report 404. We distinguish between the two based on one that has a body and the other doesn't have anything because there's no server at all. So just something to think about. Invalid chat completion.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Last time we did invalid configuration completion exception.
Oh, is that what we call it? Invalid. Yeah, you're right, because the issue has to come before the entity. You're absolutely right there. So let's do that, and then let me take this. Good call. Thank you. And let's do it this way. Okay, so there's this one. And then this one will be handled as a dependency exception. I don't think we have a dependency exception yet. Double check, Mabruk. See if I did it as a dependency exception, please. So chat completion dependency exception.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, good. Good, Hassan. I remember stuff sometimes. And then this is public as well. So here is exception. CTOR exception inner. Paul, do you have the code in or no? Huh? You gonna write code today?
I'm just pulling it now, just to to be honest, I haven't even caught up with the last session yet. You're banging these sessions out so fast. I'm having a job to keep up.
Oh, this is nothing. Oh, dude, if you work with me a real work day, you would know that this is a joke. This is all a joke. You know, one session a night. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like I've got to find like an hour out of my regular day where I'm doing other things, right?
Oh, the struggles, the struggles.
As you know from being a parent yourself, it's not exactly a walk in the park at times.
Okay, so let's do this. Public async task should throw a dependency exception on send if URL not found. Async. So if the URL is not found, that configuration. And sometimes this can be translated into something even more dangerous, like, you know, the URL is good, but the server is down, right? So it could be a red herring. And I honestly, just something for people to think about deeply. How do we tell, right? How do you tell when a server is down and you're getting URL not found exception? How the heck are you supposed to know as an engineer whether to report this as, oh, it's your fault, whoever owns the configuration, or it's the other people's fault? Because that's a completely different set of actions that can be taken. So something for people to think about, you know.
Wow.
Chat completion. It needs a brain. We need a brain to think about this problem. There he is. What up, Core?
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome aboard. So there is. I'm muting you for a second. There is no way we can distinguish this because the server could be gone indefinitely, right? How do we know that? Right. So these are the problems that we really want to think about. You know, do you guys have anything off the top of your head? This is really a discussion. Like, what do we do about that?
Which server are you referring to?
So you're calling OpenAI, right? You're trying to call OpenAI server, right? That API, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, in the event that our library is put onto an API, you've got an API calling an API, so you've got two servers, right? So, but yeah, I mean, if it's just like the library is calling out and it's getting a 404 back, then obviously the server is up, right? Because if it's not even getting a 404 back, then you wouldn't be able to make the request.
No, you would still get a 404 even if the URL is not there.
Is that a RESTful sense thing, or is that, because I don't think that's a HTTP thing in general. Like, if I go and request, like,
no, wait, actually that's a good point. So if you're calling, hang on, let's try this.
Because you'll get something like target machine actively refused, blah blah blah.
Right, let's see this. If I do HTTPS www dot whatever, come on, Shell, just some garbage.com/API. Yeah, this guy will say could not send requests.
Yeah, that's different to you actually hit a URL, you actually hit a server, but the server said, I can't find what you're looking for.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well, let's say the endpoint is down. How do we handle this today, Brian? Like, if the server doesn't exist at all, what exception do we throw? Just the generic HTTP response not found, HTTP response exception? Oh, that's insane. So okay, still, you know, the argument stands. You know, let's say I am calling an endpoint and the endpoint is down. Endpoint is down, right? It's not my fault. My configuration is solid, but the endpoint is down. How do you deal with that?
So that's a transient dependency exception, effectively.
And it could be your fault. It could be that the configuration is not right, or it could be that you know, the server, the URL is down. How do you distinguish between these two in a library? This is a very hard problem to solve and it's a problem that needs to be solved simply because it really warrants a completely different set of actions. Okay, so the actions that you will be taking based on this would be very different. It's either, oh, it's their fault, so we're down, or it's our fault, so we need to fix it and bring the servers back online, or fix the configuration, or whatever the case may be. So some of these problems are, harder to solve, because basically you're basically saying, I need to somehow figure out how to distinguish between these two. And it's almost impossible that you tell whether it's a configuration issue or the URL is down, the API is down, right? That's one of the pains, of developing and debugging services this way. Now, let me tell you this, Paul. We could redefine, API standards to go and say, here is a schema of all the endpoints that are supposed to be active, and we are reporting that the API is down. You know how some good services would go at, like Discord, for instance. Let's say you're talking to Discord, and you're basically saying, okay, what's the health status of Discord, right? It will tell you, no, this URL is real, but it's down. Is there any way we can communicate this through REST? That's a huge question mark.
The obvious
Elbic, take
question
this
to
one.
ask
Mhm.
is, where does the configuration come from for the URL? Because something like OpenAI's API is at a known fixed URL. It doesn't change and jump around all the time. So if say 1,000 different people use our library and they all want to talk to OpenAI, then they're all talking to the same URL effectively.
Well, we made the URL configurable, like if they want to target different servers or a sandbox. But to your point, yes, they would be talking to the same URL effectively. But that's the thing. You don't know these people. You don't talk to them, right?
So my thinking is, if that's internal configuration, then why do we don't even need to ask the client to configure it, if that makes sense. So we should be able to test and know within the library whether that API is up.
We already did that, but what if they changed their URL endpoint? They changed it on you, so you have a legacy URL.
Then you roll out an update to the library.
But you don't know that. That's the thing.
Well,
Like,
you'll soon find out when you get a whole bunch of GitHub tickets saying, hey, I'm depending on this crap and it's not working.
Or even worse, the URL itself is down temporarily, and you have people yelling at you, telling you your library is not working. When it's actually, this is why we say dependency validation exception or a dependency exception. That's us telling our client, hey, we're solid. Our dependency is whack. Go ahead.
So Hassan, could you see the prior chat? I kind of went in and looked through all the HTTP status code. There's one that's called a 503, a service unavailable, which is basically saying the server is not ready to handle the request because for reasons, like it's down. I guess you could distinguish between that and an actual 404, right?
An actual outage, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's one way to do it. You're right. I think there's one way where we can go and say, but you're relying on the server actually reporting that status.
Yeah, that's the only problem with that. Yeah, true.
And then Gregory says, with pinging it prior to a call out and then reporting its status. That's not too bad, Greg. That's not too bad. But the thing is that you have no idea of telling whether it's temporary down or completely moved. Good servers will give you 306. I think, Ricky, I think it's 302 or something. We have moved. Like, this URL used to exist, but it's not around anymore. That's a 300 error. It's 300 because it's ambiguous. It's not the server fault. It's not the client fault. It's somewhere sitting there in between. I do think that HTTP standard is lacking a lot of things. Like, you can see it very clearly when you are developing some of these features. I need to know whether the URL itself doesn't exist or the entity that I'm looking for doesn't exist. Both of them will report, 404. Okay. Elbic, write one for the unauthorized.
Well, at least they put all the important stuff like I'm a teapot in there, huh?
Ah, yeah, that one is there.
I found that hilarious.
I know.
Priorities, right?
I honestly just don't remember, but I could swear someone was talking about proposing 600 exceptions, and I don't know how far that went, but it's just another proposal, and I know that it will require some expansion at some point in time. Just there's only a handful of errors that you have right now.
Is the 500 range not enough?
The 500 range. So 400 means you screwed up. 500 means I screwed up. If I'm the server and you're the caller, 400 is the caller fault. 500
so would 600 be neither of us screwed up, something else? Is that what you're thinking?
Or both of us. Or both of us screwed up.
Or it's unknown which of us screwed up. So I can't say it was you. I can't say it was me.
Something like this, Right. It's not really like, it's not always one or the other. There's this hybrid state, quantum state, right? So I
get the feeling that a lot of APIs throw 500s when they don't know what the hell went on at all. They just go, well, it's broken. And they just throw a 500 and it's like, yeah, shit happened.
Oh, that's my favorite part about people developing ASP.NET API. Try catch on the controller and everything just throws an exception. So ASP.NET doesn't know what to do with it. So it says 500 all the time. 500. This is when you know you just walked in a very bad company. You're in a very bad place because people just don't care. They really don't care. Or they didn't understand. Like, by the way, you will find like one of the most powerful things about the standard and the standard community is that we really give a whole lot of shit about the exceptions and the errors and how we communicate them and how we handle them and how we react based on them. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg here. Like Christo is already, Christo and I are already digging into things like rollback. Like when you catch that exception and you want to roll back, Paul, you've been a part of these discussions. They come and die because, we get busy and we get distracted and all that. But the conversation is still going, right? You're going to catch that exception. You're going to have to roll back at some point in time, right?
Yeah, I had some ideas how we could solve some of those scenarios, but
they're all bad.
Complex. Yeah, there isn't. You're right, though. There isn't, to my mind. I've not seen a single good idea for like if something goes wrong and you're halfway through an unknown like depth of business logic. How do you now say, okay? So like our scenario is pretty common, right? We deal with like invoices, and invoices have child line items and other related things. So you've put the header in the database so you can refer your line items to it, and then it goes bang, sticking a line item in. That's a really simple kind of scenario. But if you can imagine like in the real world, business scenarios are like stacks of that has happened in a batch, inside a service, that's so you're like halfway down a whole ton of things, and then you've got to do. So the old-fashioned way of doing it was using MSDTC. So what would happen is all of the servers, the application servers, the database servers, everything would get into what we call a distributed transaction. And if any part of it failed, you could just roll back the distributed transaction. And because all of your database servers along the chain were involved in that, it sort of worked. Of course, they then started realizing that in like modern microservice architectures, what you're actually doing is quite often it's not just an API talks to a database. It will be like an API talks to another API and also talks to a database. So what happens when you've done the bit on the remote API and you now need to roll back? It just doesn't work. And because business logic has gotten to that point now, we're left sort of as if you're like a community of people that care about these things. We're left holding the torch and trying to figure these problems out, because I don't feel that there are pretty much anyone out there trying to solve, like really actively trying to solve this problem well. I think it's most of the time they look for, a good enough solution. They go, well, that'll do. It was brilliant because even something as simple as, like eventing that we look at today, right? Most people just depend on Mediator or something like that. And you've got this black box.
Just brainlessly, let's just put mediator there in the core of our business logic.
It's not to say that Mediator's a good library, but it's one of these things where it's like most developers just don't care. They'd rather have a black box and not have to deal with the problem than actually think about it and deal with the problem.
Yep. I'm all with you on this one.
I'm ashamed to say we're part of a wider community that is really actually quite lazy, but in a weird way, the lazy guy's the guy that gets it done the quickest, right? Because he doesn't want to do the work. So, and that's what business managers really want.
From a business, you just beat me by 1 second. From a business perspective, this guy's good, right? Because he's bringing you impact and results really quick. But in reality, they're just delivering you dog shit. Like that's literally what they're giving you. But you're incompetent enough to be able to read the code and understand what's the quality of what you're actually building. The scarier part about this is that after the smart guy is gone, Ricardo, take that one.
The crap of technical debt that he's shoveled down the line.
You have the poor junior guy coming in trying to kind of actually support this, and then the passive aggressive, are you not competent enough to understand? We got the best of the best on the job. Does that sound familiar? It's just so stupid. Like what? Like the dude that built the system, everyone is a hero when you're building something from scratch. Everyone is a hero because it's an open book. It's a white page. Go ahead and write whatever you want, right? But people come after that. Little do people think about the person that will come after that and try to support that system, right? Because I already got my reward. I already got my promo. Screw these guys. Moving on to bigger and better things, right? And anyone who judged.
It's even worse as well because the companies from the outset, like look at the hiring processes, right? They want to, they care that you understand OOP, functional programming, procedural programming, solid principles, dry, all this kind of stuff.
I thought that was only for college. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and they go, great, you've got all that stuff down. They put you through all the technical interface, interviews and like, can you use this product? How would you set this application up? That kind of thing. And then you get in and you look at the code base and you're like, why did you ask me any of those questions? Because they're not relevant to anything you do. Look at this, frankly, clusterfuck of a code base and tell me that it was worthwhile me interviewing, right? And the number of interviews that I've been through, the number of companies that I've joined, and I've gone, look, I don't mind if your code base is absolute trash, but as long as you accept that and understand that my goal from day one is going to be to tear it down and build it properly.
That's how I do it. I don't
negotiate. I'm fine with that. Yeah. If like I get, upper management basically saying, no, I'm not on board with that, or I don't have time for that. It's just like, well, why am I here?
The more important question is, what I always tell people, there are two things. First of all, being able to pass interviews and being able to do the actual job are two completely different skill sets.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know people off the top of my head, they can ace interviews at Google. They can pass that interview with a flying colors, right?
Yeah.
Put them
and
on
it goes
an
a step further as well. It's
Yeah.
like being able to get a computer science degree and being able to pass interviews are two different things.
Yep, that guy is ideal, right? Bring that guy, have this guy sit down and tell him, hey, just drive this application for me. Be like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So some companies, Paul, started doing something interesting. They start saying, we're not going to interview people. You're going to be pairing with us for a day. So while we're pairing with you, we are monitoring how you're learning new skill sets, how easy it is to work with you and kind of have a conversation with you. And at the end of the day, you get a decision immediately. So instead of having people sitting waiting 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, for you to make a decision, you're basically coming at the end of the week, at the day, and you're saying, okay, how does it feel, right? Do you like this guy? Do you not like this guy? It's either yes or no, right? If I'm pairing with, Reiki, Elbic, or Yusuf, I know, like when you're pairing, are you comfortable with this guy or not? Are they too aggressive? Is it hard to work with them? Do they just start, yelling at you for no reason? If you start kind of making some mistakes, are they the kind of people that will kind of, really ride your back and be like, no, do it this way, do it that way? Or are they the kind of people that will say, hey, finish your thought, finish the code that you're trying to write, and then let's have a little quick retrospective. Let's just see, what we learned from this process. I think that's a much better kind of approach, to work with people, because at the end of the day, you want people to learn. You don't want robots. You don't want, slaves. You don't want people to come in and just do whatever you tell them. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
It genuinely amazes me that companies don't just do that. Because if you want to know if somebody can do the job, well, ask them to do the job for a day. Or not even a day, a couple of hours, right? Work on a ticket for a couple of hours. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask a developer and especially you see in more modern times, particularly with the bigger companies, they have 6 or 7 stages of interview process. Just get the guy in, spend 2 or 3 hours doing some programming with him. If he gets on okay with the team during that process, doesn't mind the process, it's worth having, a chat with the upper management. If everybody's all in agreement, sign him up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's don't sit there and ask him hypothetical fizz buzz questions or, how to write a bloody sort algorithm. I mean, who here has recently or at all during their programming career had a need to write a sort algorithm?
It's been 22. Right. Hold on. It's been over 22 years, and I have yet to come across a situation where I need to reverse a binary array. Just didn't happen yet. Still waiting.
Yeah, same here. And I'm like, why does this come up as an interview question? What are these people thinking? And I went into an interview once and I actually called the guy out when he asked me this as a question. And I said, look, I'm not going to answer that because it has no relevance to anything I'll be doing day to day. Ask me questions that are relevant.
Yeah.
And his response was to get quite angry with me. And I went, well, if you don't like my viewpoint and if you don't like the fact that, I want questions that are relevant to the job, maybe this isn't the job for me.
Nope, I hear you right there. Nope, I agree 100%. It's quite annoying. I think a lot of things need to change in our industry. The way we're kind of conducting interviews. I asked someone this once, a seasoned person. I said to them, hey dude, you know what, why are people asking these questions? They were like, well, we want to see if the person has brains. I was like, that's playing trickery and giving people riddles is not what's going to help you get the job done. If you want a smart ass person, go ahead.
You know what you should do, Hassan, one day, just for fun. When somebody new joins these live streams and is new to the community, say, right, today we're going to write a sorting algorithm, and you have to do it to the standards. And if you fail, we're kicking you out the community. Just as a joke, and just watch their face just drop. It would be just.
I don't know.
If it's cool if I jump in, I just want to say I think that's why I've taken such a liking to the standards, because it's it's very non-conventional in a lot of ways. It's going into a lot of the norms that I feel like the industry has just allowed to be the norm for whatever reason. Then people who aren't really going above and beyond to change that are just well, this is what people do, so we're going to continue to do it. And so taking on the standard as a new way, a new paradigm of not only doing things with better quality, but also being open to change. I have never seen so much resistance than when I was working at, the company that I just got laid off from, which is supposed to be one of the best companies for software in the world. And yet there was so much resistance. And I think the standard embraces what I feel like technology should have been from the start, which is this open community that's dynamic, not only in viewpoints, but in the people that they're serving, always including and changing. And that's, it's very powerful stuff. But didn't write a lot of binary search, algorithms or anything like that. But I did write a lot of EXEs, let me tell you. So many EXEs.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway,
absolutely disgusting. Can't work in programming for 20 years without writing a sort algorithm. A atrocious. You must be a horrible programmer.
Yep, you must.
Quick, sack him.
I agree with Yusuf there. It's just ridiculous. Okay, let's wake up Paul a little bit. Paul, take this one. Let's see. Hey.
Oh no! Don't get me to write code. No,
it's
no,
it's part of the party. You know.
No, what do you want me to do? This is not good. I'm still trying to get the repo. Hang on. Well, I think I have it.
Right. I'll give it to Yusuf then. Take it, Yusuf. Just handle that exception.
I don't even know what branch you guys are in. I'm still trying to play catch up with all the live.
Did you just say I don't know what projects you guys are in? Just right now?
No, branch.
Branch.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know you renamed the project, so that would be also a valid question.
Because that would be interesting. You remind me of the folks, at high school, we would go to the exam and then we're all in the room and some people would joke, be like, what are we testing on? What subject is this? And I'd be like, wait a second. Hold on a second. No, we are in the foundations. Just type in chat, foundation and chat, because you should find it in there. We're very close. We're just a couple of more exceptions away, and we should be on our way. Should be our way to success. I think on the completion side we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the chat we got 4. We got 4 out of 7. All right, Yusuf, take it. Are you in the right branch? Yes, you are. So Yusuf, we just want to handle the HTTP response not found exception. Once you're done, Elbic, take it back and write another test and hand it over to Brian, okay?
Okay.
We're gonna get some folks to kind of just do the passing, and then slowly we're gonna have them make the failing as well.
So
Okay.
Are you hearing any other noise? I tried to make my mic do the cancellation.
Oh, I'm not hearing any other noise. You're just fine. You're perfectly fine.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So this is the test that I'm gonna be making pass.
Yep. Paul, get your shit together. Get the thing. I don't care. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. over there. You showed up. You're gonna write code. That's what's gonna happen.
You just love picking on me, don't you?
Oh, I love it. I don't know. I'm actually gonna come to England probably next year. Probably. So.
If you do, hit me up, man. We'll have to meet up.
How far are you from London?
Well, like everywhere in England, maybe an hour or 2's drive. So.
Oh, so it's like going to a grocery store here in America. Great.
Yeah. Local corner shop, right?
Everything is just far. Look, here in America, if you don't have a car, you're screwed big time, unless you're in New York City or something like that. But if you don't have a car, you may as well just move away to some other country, because everything is just far, and the streets are extremely wide, which breeds a set of people who don't know how to drive. The kind of people that will give you the left signal and then go right. That kind of people, they're amazing. They amaze me. I don't even know anymore. Like when people give a signal, I don't believe them. I just gotta wait for them to actually take the turn. I'll be like, so that's what you meant. Gotcha.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've lost so much faith in humanity. I get to a roundabout and I look both ways. Because, you just never know.
Okay, so I think I'm in the right place. We're going to use the try async or the try catch, and then I'm just going to add it here, I assume.
Yep, you want to go to the bottom of this thing and just catch the HTTP response not found, and then convert it into not found chat completion exception, and then categorize it into chat completion dependency validation exception. You got this, score. Go to town.
Okay, appreciate it.
So Paul, you actually do, like, your car is on the right side. Like you're actually you sit on the right side. That's where the steering wheel. That's so weird, man. Why do you have to be so different from the rest of the world? Does it make any sense?
Because
hang
what
on,
happens-
that's normal.
That's
Because what happens ultimately, right, is the Brits come up with an idea, they get it right, and the rest of the world goes, nah, those Brits, what do they know what they're talking about? And then they get it all wrong.
okay. Right now, I'm gonna have to look up how many countries, have steering wheels on the right versus left. You're gonna have to fix this problem, right? How many countries steering wheel? Okay, steering wheel on the right side, 163 countries.
There you go, see? It's you Americans that are the strange ones.
And the
some-
left side is
Some
only
random Europeans
76.
as well.
What kind of what kind of timeline did I tap into? No, this is wrong. What do you mean? Elbik, what is it in Uzbekistan? Right or left? Careful, because you're gonna get kicked off the stream based on your answer.
Left.
On the left, good.
Yeah.
So the right way.
No, that's the left way by definition.
Oh my God, I can never imagine. I think my brain would just crack open. Like I wouldn't be able to. But you saw these Tesla trucks. They didn't put it on the right or the left. They put it in the middle. They said, okay, just put it on the middle, and just
Issue fixed.
Yeah, problem
Yeah.
solved. You don't have to differentiate now,
No.
do you, between countries?
Nope, you just put it in the middle, and then soon there will be no steering wheel at all. There will be just AI driving your car. I was talking to a bunch of people from a company here in the US. Their name is Aurora Tech. And what these guys are doing, they're doing something really cool. What they're basically doing is if you have a normal car, they turn it into self-driving car for you. So instead of you having to sell your old car or trash your old car, they say, and go buy a Tesla or any of these self-driving car, why don't you just let us install a driver kit that makes your car self-driving? For big companies, especially transportation companies, this is huge. This is massive because it saves millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, in kind of doing that integration. It's pretty cool.
Hey, quick question. I think I did this. I added the not found chat completion exception, wrapping that in the chat completion dependency validation exception.
Correct. That's correct.
And then throwing that. Okay, cool.
Now
It's
run the test. Is it passing?
Yeah, I already ran it, but I can run it again.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Put the commit. Elbig, get ready.
All right, cool. Passing that now or pushing that now.
What's the one with the warning? What's the warning for?
Gregory says if the states of roads do not have the
That was
volume
skip a
of
test.
turnabouts, New Jersey has probably the most.
Uh,
You couldn't pay me enough
Yeah.
money to go to New Jersey. Oh, Gregory, you're not from New Jersey, are you?
Americans struggle with anything that's not a traffic light controlled junction. They're very simple people by comparison. The whole of Europe can figure it out, but for some reason, the United States have difficulty. Just don't know what it is.
Look, Mr. Pavement, chill out.
This is why they're pioneering and leading the charge into automated driving, because they just can't figure it out. It's too complicated for them. Sorry. I can imagine the backlash, right?
I have to tell you, we have a lot of weird things here in the US, like why Hawaii has an interstate. There are no states. It's just the one. Why do we have interstate over there? It just doesn't make any sense.
Because over here we call them motorways, and it's just a high-speed road.
Wait a second. Did you just say motorways?
Yeah. Because and in Germany they call them autobahns, I believe.
Oh, the Autobahn. Yeah. Is that right, Mabruk? Mabruk, how do you say Mabruk, how do you say speed limit in German?
Unbegrenzt.
Do Germans know what a speed
Yeah.
limit is?
We don't have it.
They have they have a road that has no speed limit. And I am surprised that this road doesn't have
Unbegrenzte Geschwindigkeit.
Oh my lord.
It's one lane, isn't it? It's on the autobahns. It's
What
like
is it,
the
Mabruk? Are they
fast lane.
coming?
In fact, don't they have minimum speed limits on the on the outside lanes.
Only I saw this in Iowa. They have minimum speed limit, but you won't see it anywhere else in the US. It's very rare to find minimum speed limit, and that's just because, mostly there's a lot of Amish in there. You'd be just driving behind a cart and a horse, for the most part, and sometimes people drive on the highway with a tractor, and it just slows down everybody, or an auger.
Am I right? Am I right in understanding that American interstates have a maximum speed limit of 55 miles an hour?
Oh, 55 miles an hour. We have like 70 miles an hour.
Oh, 70. Oh, okay. I was going to say, because like whenever you see like American roads on TV, like particularly when they're like the ones that go like across states, you always see like the 55 mile an hour signs, but you never see the 70s.
No, there's 60 and normally it's 60 and 70. Yusuf, don't forget to push.
That must be really depressing. Like if you're driving from, say, I don't know, where you are in Seattle to like DC.
Oh, that'll take days.
That's going to be a hell of a drive, isn't it? Whereas like if they had the roads set up like they do in Germany, you could just floor it in your fancy Tesla, do the whole journey at like 180 mile an hour or whatever.
I mean, throughout your road, there's a lot of little towns that you go through. There's a lot of there's still a lot of places that are very, very just primitive, to be honest with you. But it's amazing. Like if you're traveling across the US, you're gonna go from mountains to farms to snow to rocky to desert. You just see it all. We have the whole thing.
But you build your interstates through those towns, don't you? Whereas we would build them around the town, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, why would we do that?
Build the town either side of the road, so the road is for the most part like free flowing.
Nope, it has to go through, and then you take an exit, and then you go just get some of your Starbucks coffee, and then roundabout and just go out again on the highway. It's good for business.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how it would traffic that's driving along the main road, if you like, when they're going between cities. You could encourage more traffic into an intermediate town in the middle, but like if that's a particularly busy road, that must cause all sorts of chaos in the town. Like if we did that over here in England, for example, like if we ran our motorways through the middle of all the major cities that they go past, geez, places like Birmingham would just stop dead. Like it would just become a car park, and that would be it.
I mean, you also have to consider the US is huge. It's bigger than Australia. It's huge, So there's a whole lot of do you really think there's more in common between people from New Jersey and Utah here in the US than people from, I don't know, Ireland and England? There's very different kind of people. They just talk differently. They have their own accents. They have their own traditions. I always differentiate between people in different states just by the way they describe Coca-Cola. They will find some people say pop, soda, Coke. It all depends. It can tell you immediately. What do you say in England? Do you say Coke? Do you have difference in there?
Yeah, we just say Coke.
Funnily
enough, actually, my daughter's been learning most of her speech from watching very Americanized YouTube videos. So it's quite funny because she speaks the way I imagine you speak day to day. And she comes up with some really strange stuff, and she really puts like a proper strong American accent on it. And me and the wife just end up pissing ourselves laughing some days.
From watching these, she's probably watching some of these cartoons and stuff like that. I know what's her name. We have John Krasinski married to, is it Emma Watson? No, not Emma Watson. We have an American actor married to some British actress, and she was talking about how her daughters, they used to say "woota," and now they say "water." She really hates it. She really hates that. She's like, I don't want to hear that. It's just wrong. Well, by the way, just so you understand, here in the US, not everybody says water. If you go to people in, I don't know, maybe Boston, they say water. It's very weird. Water.
Funnily enough, that thing about like dialects and accents, if I drive maybe 2 hours north of here. Completely different.
Yeah.
So like where I am, I'm in a place called Andover. It's about 45 minutes from the M25. The M25 is the circular that goes all the way around London, effectively. Encompasses the whole Greater London area. So if I go, say, 2 hours to the west of here, I'll be in Wales, and they speak a completely different language.
Yep. Yep. Do they speak Pikey?
They speak Welsh.
How are you doing up there? I don't know what you're talking about. Aye, brother. You go all the way. No, I mean people from Wales, they speak a completely different language, right? They don't speak English, right? They speak Welsh, right?
Well, I think the way their schooling system's set up is they teach them both languages. Because, you know, they're still British at the end of the day, but they also have their own culture, if you like. So they try to sort of bestow that upon them as a sort of local tradition, as well as give them the more sort of national values. When I say national, Britain being the nation here rather than Wales, if that makes sense.
Can you say the name of this really long ass name city in Wales? You know what I'm talking about? While Brian is doing this, do you know what I'm talking about?
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, it's like it's something stupid, like 70 characters long, and it's all consonants. There's like no vowels in it.
Yusuf, check this out. This is a real city name.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, there is a couple of vowels.
Also known as a cat running on a keyboard. Like, look,
I have no idea what that is, but it should be illegal.
Look, it's a city name in Wales.
That's an actual sign. I've seen that sign in real life. It does exist.
It's like the really, and people say that, like some actual, like a TV reporter, he was actually saying that, and I was like, wow.
But Hassan, at least you know the way out, so you can run as fast as you can away from time. Never return.
They even shortened it, and even the shortened version of it is absolute nonsense. Like, Paul, can you even say that? Can you say that word?
No, and I wouldn't want to insult the Welsh by attempting it.
For those who want to hear it, because it also sounds really funny. Tell me, can you hear this guy? Can you hear him? You can't. Let me share with sound here. Hold on a second. So share screen, share audio, and here we go. Okay, tell me if you can hear that guy now.
12 degrees over coastal part.
Okay, now watch this, because it's gonna blow your mind. He just says it like he's saying his daughter's name or something. Watch this.
Of eastern England with cloudy skies, but in the sunshine in northwest Wales at RAF Mona, just up the road from Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll Gogera Quindrobol, Llantysilio Gogogoch. The temperature got to
it's like it's a joke. Is that a joke? It's a joke.
They deliberately do that because it is the joke, is that it's difficult to pronounce, and they just make these guys do it for fun.
I like the smile at the end, like the little.
Yeah, he knows. No, he knows.
He pulled it off.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He knows people are gonna watch this and be like, "What in the cat running on a keyboard is going on right now?" So, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh wow, did we actually really reach just the service exception? Did we get to the bottom of it? Brian, careful there. I think that's not what the test is for. Just watch out. No, Paul, that's crazy. I don't even know if that's the longest city name in the world. You know, that's probably worth, longest city
it's
name.
Probably one of, if it's not the, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's not even the longest. There is a city called, and this city, it's watch this. Now this is getting ridiculous. Like, is this also in Wales, or where the heck is that? Hold on. Oh wow, like the sign is just. So this 1,000 foot hill, North Island of New Zealand. Okay, Paul, Brian, your people up right next, your neighbors. I like how I could just randomly look anything online and just find someone on the stream to talk about.
That's probably where they chose to record the Lord of the Rings, because they figured, well, if anybody figures it out where our recording location is, they'll just think it's a typo, so they won't actually go looking.
Oh, that's insane, dude. Like I don't know, man. I mean, we do have exceptions. Our exception names are longer than this, but still, I mean, it looks a lot like how we write our own test names. Should throw validation, but at least I can say it. You know what I mean?
Have you ever actually hit the 120 character limit in a test name yet?
No. When we do, we always find a way around it. We always lawyer our way around it. It's a nice way of saying, hey, use your brain, try to shorten it out a little bit. The further you go in your services, if you do a coordination service, or if you do a management service, yeah, it gets very interesting. Like, imagine if the entity that you're working with is 2 words, like student registration. It would be student registration, coordination, dependency, validation, exception, right? But your brain doesn't see these words anymore. You're like looking for particular categories where this all fits in, right? And the beautiful thing about the standards is that you get to look at things like this and be like, well, that's how it is. Elbic, do you want to help Brian here?
So what am I catching here, brother?
Let's go to the test. Let's see what we're catching. Let's go to the test.
I was just going to say, I think it helps when it's a pattern, because you're looking for the pattern, so it makes it easier to process.
Am I on the wrong test, brother?
We'll run all the tests. Let's run all the tests. Let's find the one that's failing.
Oh.
Anyway, Paul, did you get your shit set up yet?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because I'm going to take this from Brian after he's done, and I'm going to give you a failing test.
No, don't do that. Don't make it work.
I'm going to intentionally make it really weird.
It's not letting me jump to the test.
Oh, just look for its name then. Just look for the test name then.
I wonder if I'm still having problems with my Visual Studio.
Elbic help Brian on this one. Let's see.
What line number is it on?
How you doing, Ricky?
So actually, I wrote a test against this rate limiting. So can you see there's too many exceptions or too many requests occurred on test? Did it?
So Brian, try this. Do Control-MO. It will collapse all the methods for you.
Yep.
And then find the one that has a red tick on top. There you go. That's your guy right there.
Yeah.
So now open up this guy. Let's see what it's expecting. So you see that non-localized, non-categorized exception, HTTP response too many requests exception, line 154. That's your guy right there. That's what we should be catching.
So I had a question about this actually, because I was reading through some of the code that's already been written, and we are doing a translation in a foundation service, aren't we? Because we're translating from the external model into the internal one.
Yes, sir.
I was under the impression that that was only possible in an orchestration service, according to the standard.
No. You're only that's why I'm happy that we're doing these sessions, because as far as I have been teaching people the standard, I've been teaching them through a database that you own. So you're working with a database that you own. Even the instances where I was presenting a Blazor application, I was talking about integrating with an API that you still own. So the models are the same across the board. But in reality, if you look at the actual literature of the standard, I basically say, your foundation services are the last point of abstraction, meaning that they're responsible for doing that mapping between external and internal world. This is why they're very important. A lot of people are under the impression that brokers are the last point of abstraction. That's not true. Brokers just wrap up the actual dependency so we can mock them, but the ones that are actually doing all the work in terms of abstraction are the foundation services. Now, moving onwards, like your business logic, just while Brian is doing this, your business logic doesn't really start until the second 50% of your foundation service. Like if you go back to the standard here, you will find something here that's very interesting. In the services area, you know, I put in this, I think it's in the foundation service. If you scroll, oh, there it is. So if you scroll up here, you'll find out that there is this little diagram. There it is. See how half of the foundation service is red and the other half is green. Why is that? Because it's taking all that external crap and it's trying to map it into your core green stuff, right? The green stuff is your localized, owned models, right? That's where it gets interesting. So yeah, they're responsible for that part, of course. That's why they're foundations. You know, they do the hard stuff. Okay, Brian, are you good?
It's interesting that you say that, because I've been looking at, as you know, as part of this SPOL stuff, I've been looking at how we can abstract away EF. So we don't have, for example, a dependency on entity framework in our services stuff. So the way I structure my projects at the moment, deliberately, so I can see where my dependency graphing actually is all of my service classes live in a library. And all of my, if you like, all of my broker stuff lives in an assembly. And then all of my EF stuff lives in another assembly. So I've deliberately split them out in that manner.
Right.
Now, what this has allowed me to do is it's allowed me to understand that, for example, if I don't have a dependency at all on entity framework anywhere in that services assembly that contains all of my business logic, how do I do things like includes when I want to load more data from the database? Now, I can either do something like a link select, which would allow me to still select those things in a non-EF aware manner, so to speak. Or at the broker level, I can write a function which is like, get this set of data for this business process reason and expose that as part of the broker, and then put the logic for doing the includes into the entity framework assembly. Given that it's just a get plus an include, I know what you're going to say. It's business logic, right, behind the broker.
Yeah.
But what I do is I also write acceptance tests for my DB contexts. And the reason why I do that is because where I use Entity Framework's query filters functionality for security, because we've got a multi-tenanted database, I found that it was unavoidable, and I'm looking at ways to abstract that out into some sort of like configuration type, and then the configuration type can be tested essentially.
Right.
So I could have like an EF filtering service or something as a type, and I can pass that into the DB context. But then architecturally, if you look at the structure of things, I'd have some foundation. It depends on a broker. The broker depends on a DB context, which depends on some foundation service. And that to me didn't sit right either.
Yeah.
So my thinking was, it's not really a service. It does contain business logic, but it's more of like a configuration model.
Right.
But it requires some degree of acceptance testing to ensure that the queries that I'm building in that, those link expressions essentially, are correctly tested, so that I can make sure that my business rules are correct. So in lieu of like not having done that, what I do is wherever I define my DB context, I build an acceptance tests project for my DB context, and I just test spinning up an instance of that and asking for some data with varying permissions, just to confirm that, you know, given I've met the criteria in the filter that I think it should be, I get the rows back. And if I haven't met the criteria, I don't get the rows back, agnostic of all my business logic that then sits on top of it. And it's a really tricky proposition, right? Because I think we get the same problem when we deal with external APIs, in that the external API returns an external model. And from our business logic point of view, we don't want to be operating on an external model, right? You always want to be operating on an internal one. But you also don't want to at all see the external model in your internal business logic.
Right.
So I wondered if there was some
well, wait. In your internal business logic above foundation services. Yes.
Well, so this is the thing, right? Given what I'm doing with EF, I wondered if that was a pattern. And I could say, okay, instead of having a DB context, I have an API context, and I can apply the same rules to that, where I can acceptance test basic transformation logic from an external model to an internal model, and then my foundations never have to see anything external, ever. That means that I can build a services containing library that is always externally agnostic, and I never have a dependency on anything external. See where I'm going?
If you can do that, I will give you $1,000 if you can do it the way that you just described. Because look,
so here's the scary thing, right? I've already done it, but I know it's not standard compliant as it's currently documented. Right? Because what the standard doesn't allow for example, is this concept of acceptance testing a DB context, right?
It's not yours. The DB context is not yours. It's an external provider forcing their concepts down your business logic throat. You can't do that. You just can't.
So where we've been having lots of discussions, particularly on the OData side of things, right, around, and this is particularly specific to databases, right? So the problem that we found is we as standard stack builders, we tend to like to build OData APIs, right? So we've got this magic OData processing library, nicely handcrafted by Sam and team, that does some really crazy black box stuff that we're in the process of unpicking as part of Neo.
Yep.
And then we've got all of our business logic, which is standard compliant. And then at the bottom, we've got this other several million lines of entity framework code doing more magic tricks. And the funny thing is, Sam's thing, the ASP.NET OData library, knows how to talk to a DB set because it knows somehow how to use includes and things like that, even if there's no reference directly. So if I create a myproject.api with all my controllers in it, and I say enable OData, and I don't reference EF in that, and then 2 libraries away, I reference EF, and that's where I get my iQueryable from. Somehow, Sam's magic expression building knows how to speak EF. Do you see what I mean?
But wait, it's sitting on your exposure layer.
Yeah.
What happens to your business logic?
The exposure layer is just iQueryable. It's not iQueryable plus EF. So when you do like an OData include, how does it know to do an EF include?
It's building the expression and sending it to the iQueryable that's provided by your exposure layer at the API level.
Which is iQueryable, right?
Yes.
Without an EF reference.
Without any, well, to your argument, iQueryable carries AF provider within, which I'm also not happy about.
Is that what it's doing then? Do you think it's going into the provider?
Dude, open up any iQueryable. You're going to find provider. Ask Brian Parker and Christo and these smart folks about that. They'll tell you that inside iQueryable, there's a freaking provider, which I hate. I hate so much.
I know the provider's there, but I'd be very surprised if Sam's logic was unpacking that and consuming it directly.
We could talk to him on Monday. I mean, I'm trying to drag his feet. You know,
this is probably very much an OData discussion, but this is why I'm particularly interested in this AI thing, because I've got a funny feeling that if we as developers can figure out how to explain the problem, I bet you something like GPT-4 could solve this a metric crap ton better than we could. And I just don't know how it would do it. So I've got some ideas at the moment of how I can take what we're building here, plug that into GPT-4. I'm going to build some stuff on top of it, and I'm going to have it spin up entire new projects for me that are standard compliant.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so, believe me, like this library, it's gonna be used until it's used. Like I'm already planning a set of and I hope that some people from this community would be happy to join these streams. But what we're gonna be doing, you're gonna take this library and go build on the side example projects of how to leverage this library to do things. Like one of the things we want to leverage Blazor in a chat application. How do we build a chat application? It'll be a great opportunity to teach people about Blazor. Mostly will be led by Brian because he's the Blazor guy. Like he's number 4 or 3 on Stack Overflow when it comes to Blazor questions. But there's also an instance where I want you to leverage that stuff in database. Like imagine this, Wardy. Like I want to build with you an example on top of OpenAI where you can go and say, Elbic, do the service exception, please, and then hand it over to Paul. He's the last one on the group. But imagine, Paul, I want people to be able, dude, listen, I want to be able to query data with natural language. Do you understand? So it's picking up, you're basically going and saying, give me every student you have that have grades over 20 or something like that, natural language. And it takes that and converts it into OData or SQL or entity framework, whatever you want to convert it to. So this is another example. We're basically showing the world, how AI can play a crucial role in allowing your mainliner, your mainstream person using a computer system to be able to do things that only DBAs and developers used to be able to do. That's how you bring it mainstream. Comprende, amigo? Sorry, Ricky.
So are you thinking we're going to have an ODataNeo.ai project?
Yes.
That brings this and Neo together.
Yes.
And
I'll bring this and Neo together. I'll bring this and Blazor together. I'll bring this and Cosmos DB together. Yeah. We're gonna marry these technologies. That's how I get popular. I just do crazy shit like this, and people be like, "Oh no, I didn't know you could do that together." I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" I mean, I have a hardware board sitting behind me to reflect my GitHub. I don't know if I showed you guys this, but this will reflect my GitHub contributions. It's all just cells, and it has lights in them, right?
Are you gonna mount it on the wall?
Yeah.
That'd be funky during the live streams, and people can see your commit pop up and the green dot appear.
Yep, and every time I push a commit, and it reflects, it will just have the screen go like zzz, like celebration, like a new commit has been just committed or something like that. Oh, you could do a lot of fun things, with that nonsense, right? You got to be creative. I mean, the beautiful thing about AI is that it's basically telling you, stop moving data around and start doing something that really distinguishes you from a toaster, which is creativeness. That's all that it is.
Good luck with that.
Get ready, because you're gonna make this test pass. You're the last one. You're the most one talking, last one, and least one coding. But seriously, after you do that test, you'll be able to open actually the pull request is already open, but we'll be able to merge, and then I think it'll take us like 10 minutes to do the client, and another 10 to just do an acceptance test. And guys, we can publish v0.2. It's great moment. Brian, you're gonna take the client this one.
Is this the last test case? Is it? So it will be the one where we catch general exceptions and throw.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Ah, that's cool. Sorry, my kids are obviously awake.
Yep. I know you didn't. I know you missed the first time we finished the release for obvious reasons, but this time you're gonna be
about that. I really wanted to be here for that release date.
Hey, I gave you a shout out anyway. I told you, here's the, thank you for coming in and, writing some code with us.
I do appreciate it, actually, because like every time I'm not around, I just hear you giving me shout outs and stuff.
I'll bring you up. Paul, somehow you managed to go through 87 sessions with me.
Yeah.
On ODataNeo. That's just ODataNeo. Plus, like right now, I think you and I could just celebrate our 100th session together. 100 sessions.
We should do that. Wow. We should count them all up, and then when you're in London, we'll go out for a beer and we'll have a proper. We'll get like the cameras out and stuff as well, and we'll post some pictures on the community.
I'll go for tea, but yeah, I don't want to know what you look like when you're drunk, for sure.
Fine. It's no different to what I look like at 5 a.m.
Listen, Paul, do you know what 100 sessions? If you multiply this by 2 hours, that means we spent time on stream together for 200 hours. That's like more than a month, continuous month straight. Didn't take a break.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my paycheck, by the way.
Keep waiting.
Even Elbeck's like, nah, forget that. You got no hope. This guy's a slave driver.
I was just talking to the team offline about this. I was telling them, I'd be doing the community a really bad. By the way, Paul, it's your turn. Go ahead, pick up the code.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be really hurting the community if I taught them the standard and didn't give them a way to express the standard. This is why we're thinking about, hey, how do I open a business? How do I have my own business? How do I bring customers? How do I have these customers really want my software and all that? If I don't do that, then I'm lying to all of you. I'm missing out with all of you. Sharif Mansour says, Paul is a genius by day. Congrats, Paul. Yep.
I wish I was, to be fair. Like, sometimes I think like 8 out of 10 days, working days, I hit like the really stupid, silly little problems, and I feel like I get a lot of imposter syndrome, But
by the way, for the people watching, there has been at least 2 or 3 instances where I literally screamed at Paul and told him, "You're wrong," and I was wrong. I found out that I was wrong, and he was gracious enough to say, "You know what? That's okay. We're discussing. We're passionate about what we're doing. Let's keep going." A big part of SPAL came from Paul. Yeah, I think it's this one. Yeah. Why is it not running all the tests like a normal person?
I don't know. Like, we had this in the last OData session with my Visual Studio being.
Do you know why, Paul? Because your steering wheel is on the wrong side.
Is that what it is? Do I need to move the mouse over here?
That's why. That's the real reason.
Yeah, the mouse is on the wrong side of the keyboard. Fair enough. We'll go with that, shall we?
I had this guy at work who liked to put the tests on the right side and the Solution Explorer on the left side, and that tripped me so bad. Like, I would just throw me off like ways you can't imagine. I hated that. It was horrible, but you get used to it. Hey, at least he had dark mode. Not like Sam Shu. Sam puts on light mode, and both Paul and I are like, "Oh, you're blinding both of us. Please stop that." It's ridiculous, man.
It's literally like trying to code in the middle of summer on a beach. It's crazy. I think it's that simple, isn't it? For the let's.
Yep, that's it. You need to localize it first. So you need failed. I'm muting you for a second. Your kids are going crazy. Okay.
Sorry. Give me.
No, you're fine. Don't apologize. You're just a living person. I just want your code. I don't care about I don't care about your thoughts. I just want your code.
I have a question here.
Yeah, equals.
What was that, Mabruk?
The exceptions here, chat completion service and dependency and validation exceptions, shouldn't be public for the customers.
They should be public, yes.
They are internal, right?
So Mabruk, after he makes the test pass, take that clean up and take care of it. And also, Ricky, throw a comment in the private chat. He talked about that the test name is not right. So please fix that one.
Yeah, I also need to fix the variable names for the unauthorized exceptions. I forgot to put the
Thank you.
What did I get wrong here?
Everything, life in general.
Did I?
I'm sorry, Paul. It's after midnight. I have to have fun with you. Is it? No, not yet.
Putting that aside, accepting that everything I do is wrong, what did I get wrong in this particular instance?
So you took the exception, failed server. Nope, not failed server chat. It's failed chat completion service exception.
Yeah, that's what I did wrong. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. It's the same exception on the exceptions test as well,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So my bad.
What did you do? Did you mess up? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
How can you one day change the standard and then the next day you do something like that? What's wrong with you?
This is live.
Is this just named wrong then? Shall
I
I
mean,
rename
he-
this?
I mean, he's just a person, right?
It's just a person. That's what it is.
No,
you know.
services should be service, right?
Service, yeah.
Hassan, we need to hire the LinkedIn bot because then they won't get things wrong.
Eric, Eric actually, he's an engineering manager. I think he's in Indonesia or something. I looked him up. He's a pretty cool guy, actually. It's now a running joke that, as soon as he started talking to us, I was like, oh, this guy's probably a bot. And then he came back and he was like, I'm not a bot. I was like, oh, no, it's actually not a bot, Anyway, LinkedIn has a lot of bots, though. So it was a little presumptuous from me, but he was funny about it.
Yeah, I guess we need that exception, Paul.
somewhere. We don't have that exception even written. Oh, Paul, create a new model. Oh, did he create it? Failed check completion service.
Oh, I renamed the one that was there because I thought it was a typo.
Dude, no.
Is that not the case?
No, that's not the case. Why are you doing that?
Right.
Literally,
Okay.
it should take you 1 minute. Come on.
All right. I will put this back then. So we need a new server, a new exception, right?
If you just code as much as you talk, things will be much better.
Disgusting.
Brian, what are we gonna do about this British guy? Well, what do you want me to do with him? Yeah? Brian is like, I don't want to deal with this.
I think Paul's been giving you too much comfort. He's like, you're getting too comfortable sledging.
So I had to go back and look up sledging, and sledging is slang, and it's like a slang, mostly like in England, maybe Australia, and it means, the act of one sports player insulting another during a game in order to make them angry. So basically kind of like teasing them, I don't know. Yusuf, what's a good word for it? Just make it so.
I was gonna say in basketball that we just trash talking.
Trash talk, smack talk, trash talk.
Yeah. But I didn't know coding was a sport. I also didn't know you could trash talk in coding sections. That's new to me.
Coding for us is a sport. It takes physical and mental and spiritual energy to get it out.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I mean, to be honest with you, Yusuf, like I started to realize that when things are very clear, right? There is sometimes moments where you don't need that much brain power, but you need muscle power. You need to push through, right? So, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing?
I think we're missing an exception type, right?
Nope. You don't need that. You need to define a new exception called chat completion service exception, and you need failed chat completion service exception. So create a new file.
Yeah. I'm just we've got chat completion service exception.
This is good. Now create a new file. Okay. Delete that last thing that you just did.
Well, this is how I create a new file. I do it the old-fashioned way.
I swear to God.
There you go. Got a new file. Right.
We need failed chat completion service exception.
Don't forget to put it public, Paul.
Huh?
The exception. Don't forget to put the public.
It's there.
Make it public.
It needs to be public, right? Okay. So
don't mess with Ricky. I swear to God.
Oh, come on.
Okay, Rick. Cool.
What's the? Is there a specific error message that you want?
Yeah, just failed chat completion service error occurred. Contact support.
Paul needs his coffee, so.
Yeah. Did you get your coffee yet, son?
Yeah. My wife delivered me a coffee at 6:30 this morning, so about an hour ago. And look, I've been.
Did you just say? Hang on. Okay, hold up. Did you just say 6:30? At 6:30. What does that mean? Like 6:30?
Yeah.
Nobody says that. Nobody talks like that.
Except the whole
In Germany.
world.
But
Well,
in Germany, too, we
actually,
say that.
actually, in Puerto Rico we say a la y media, so it's kind of saying half as well. So
Oh, guys, let me have a day with him.
Oh.
Don't encourage.
Thanks, guys. It's great to have
Hassan,
Hassan
It's
finally
in
called
German
on his
too.
bullshit.
in Chinese too, you say like if you were to say time, you say like 6, half 6. You say 6点半. It's like
in
6
Chinese.
half.
Oh, really?
In
Wow.
German too.
Yeah, ban means like half.
Interesting.
So you're wrong.
Mabruk, do we say that in Arabic too?
La.
No.
La.
No, la. No.
No.
We don't say that. We're normal.
No. Right. Which one of me? German or Arabic?
No,
Because
Arabic.
in Germany, we use this also. We say halb
Hey.
sieben. Halb sieben is 6:30.
That's
It's
crazy.
half of 7.
That's crazy. Hey, Paul, zoom out a little bit. I see the words so clearly.
Zoom out. Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Hey Paul, by the way, there's a dependency keyword in your exception type.
He's copying and pasting. He's working. He's. I don't know.
Hang on. It's this one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the
He's
That's what we
messing
were
with you.
expecting, right?
He's messing with you. Look. That's what he does.
That's what we're expecting, right?
Nope.
So is it?
It should be failed chat completion service exception.
All right.
now this one.
I know, Paul. English is hard.
Yeah. Good grief. That's the one that's been thrown, right?
Yeah, go inside that guy. Failed chat completion service exception. Go inside of it real quick. Yeah, make that guy take exception with the E because it's the localization one. Localized exceptions do not take E exception with the X. Yep. Enter exception. All good. Okay, now close out of that peak mode. And then failed chat completion service on the variable name line 83.
I think Paul is getting confused because of the name of test itself.
Oh, the test name.
It's dependency exception. It should be should throw service exception.
Elbic did this to him.
Yeah, I messed up.
yeah,
Why would you do this to the brother? Why would you do this to him? He didn't do anything to you. He's been trying to inform us and teach us all day. All right, fix the test name, Paul. Sorry. That's just life, man. You gotta deal.
Yeah, it says it should throw a dependency exception, so that's what I've been going on, right?
Yeah, he's the youngest one on the call. Elbic, how old are you? 23 now?
Yeah.
23. He's the youngest one on the call. Unless Yusuf. No, Yusuf is 24, 26.
Service exception on
26.
stand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's the youngest one on the call, so be nice to him.
Expected. So it should throw chat completion.
Service, yeah, it should throw service exception on send if service error occurs. And then he also met the name. The name is also wrong. Look, failed server chat completion. That's all wrong. It should be line 281. Failed chat completion service exception 281. Wow, Elbic, you really threw the ball on this one. You dropped the ball, son.
Don't worry, Elbic. The last time we were on a stream together, you were doing the same for me.
Take server out. Take the word server out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no server here.
And the type should be different.
And the type should match. Yes.
Yeah.
You made Paul write the test and the passing of the test. See what you did to him?
Yeah, I never signed up for this. I'm too lazy.
I mean, I guess he did more code now, right?
Yeah, we made him. I mean, and Elbic got him in a way he didn't imagine. Elbic be like, "Oh yeah, you know stuff. I'm gonna show you." All right, mark it as passed. Give it over to Ricky and Mabruk. Who wants to clean this up? Mabruk, Ricky, which one?
Ricky can do it.
Ricky, pick up this.
Yeah.
Pick up this and clean the parameters that you were talking about. All right, Paul, push it up. Let's go.
Hang on, I'm just trying to figure out.
Wait. Go back.
What I've done here. Oh yeah, that's the
Did
test
you
edit.
did you put the failed chat completion service exception? Did you put the chat completions? Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, he's fine.
Where did he define? Yeah, he should be fine. Yeah, push it. Yeah, let it fly.
Happy?
Yeah,
Sure.
happy.
Happy?
If you're happy and you know it, push your code. Let's go.
I don't need to create the PR or nothing, do I?
Nope.
I'm on autopilot.
You're not doing the PR. It's still Ricky. Ricky's gonna take something with it.
I've gotten into the habit now. Almost every time I do commit and push, I go create PR straight away. Yeah,
all right.
It's kind of good though, because like the way I used to code before the standard, you should see my PRs, man. They would have like hundreds of files in them because it would just be commit, PR.
Whip, and then completed. Yeah, I normally say if your PR, if it's not a code drop, and it has over 10 to 15 files, you're probably doing something wrong.
It's one of the hardest things to teach people that work under me as well. Like even senior developers struggle with this because you give them like, if you just give them a ticket as abstract as it is from the business, it ends up being like 100 files or whatever that need to be created. And when I say 100 files, it's like 100 services maybe. And then they all need tests. So you end up with like literally hundreds of files that go into the PR. So I've taken the habit now of when I get a ticket from the business, I figure out what services are needed, and then I create a ticket for each business operation within those services. And so the business operation will be much like, write a test, make it pass, write a test, make it pass, just like we do here. So it does break down a lot better in terms of, PRs and things, but it's really hard to identify that when you first start doing it. You got to translate like what is usually garbage from the business, frankly, because they don't understand tech though, do they? So, and they certainly don't understand the standards. So why would you expect them to give you standardized tickets? Maybe that's something we can work on and add to the standard. How to train business people on standardizing their requirements. He sat there on mute.
You're on mute.
The whole idea of domain-driven design is to bring the business people and the engineers on the same page. That's the whole idea of it. To have them both speak the same language, right? Or at least that's the dream of it, But there are all kinds of different like ways you can accomplish that. Some teams will hire program managers to do that translation. And then both customers and engineers end up hating the program managers because they can't translate, exactly what's happening. I honestly, I don't know. What do you think about this, Yusuf? Can you be a program manager in the tech industry if you're not technical yourself? Like if you're not fully aware and up to date on how technology is evolving and all that?
Yeah,
do you need to though?
I mean, so I don't know if you remember Eric O'Brien, but he was actually like, I felt like he was a good PM. Whenever I had technical questions before the layoffs, I was going to him almost every time I had a feature design because he could give me so many different ideas on what I can add. And he was always like researching, like he's kind of like, you know how Hassan, like you always have information or news on the latest tech. You're using the latest tech.
Yeah. That's him. That's Eric. Yeah.
Yeah. He was on top of it in that way. So I felt like he was solid. And I think the best PMs can do that. Yeah.
Is a requirement though? Do you feel like the question here is like, and this is for all PMs out there, just the people that, because I know this is a struggle. Like I have PMs that I mentor myself and they say, how do I think like an engineer? I want to be able to think like an engineer. Right. And, my question to them is, why do you want to think like an engineer? And why do you feel an engineer thinks any differently than a normal person? And their feedback usually is like, I feel like I'm not able to communicate with engineers more effectively the way I'm supposed to, because I don't understand their lingo. I don't understand what they mean when they say, hey, open up a PR, or we have a merge conflict, or let's even the standard itself just doesn't make it any easier for PMs, because you're basically starting to say even a whole set of new terminology. Oh, this is a coordination, this is a foundation, this is a processing service. It can be quite difficult. And I know that PMs do such a great job. If once they know what they're doing, they can do the research for you. They can simplify things a lot. But the one thing I don't like about it is that sometimes some PMs will play a role in detaching engineers from the customers. Engineers and customers should always be face-to-face talking to each other. Must be. If your engineer is not talking to the customer, there'll be a lot of things missed in translation, which should end up in missing requirements and missing features and stuff like that. So anyway, Ricky, how are we doing? We good?
Yeah, I just changed some variable names, changed internal to public, and now I'm just doing the ordering.
Yeah, bad request should go under bad request should go under all of this, like all the way down until you reach
like after a not found, right?
Yeah. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. Look how much the team just cares about these things. We care about how the code is structured, because the more the code is cleaner, the less it's consuming cognitive resources, the easier it is. And Paul, I don't know if I interrupted something you were saying, but you're on mute. So if you were saying something and I just went through, you're on mute. Okay.
No, you're good.
What I was saying is that the more cleaner the code is, the less cognitive resources it would consume from the engineers, which means engineers could go through hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, be able to maintain it and read it and find issues with it. Just like how Ricky's doing, like the code is going on the screen. It's like, hey, by the way, I noticed a couple of things. Your brain automatically will detect these inconsistencies in pattern and kind of make it a little bit nicer. So that's sweet, right?
In my experience, what I found is sort of one of the bigger issues, particularly when you get to like big corporate products and large teams. When you're dealing with like Fortune 500s or like the 100 millions sized companies, you tend to find that you've got like this whole kind of project management team above the multiple dev teams. And their way of approaching the problem is to effectively do the developer's job of designing the product. And then when the developer hits it, they've got essentially what is architecturally, from a programming point of view, a bad design. And that's where the friction begins.
Yep.
So what I've tended to do is when I go to like business people that are not technical people, or which is to some degree the case with business analysts as well. Now, I would argue that a business analyst is somewhat technical, right? Because they're sort of a cross between, say, like an architect and a person, a business person. So they have some knowledge of tech, but not enough to like really, if you like, dig into the details of it. So I tend to focus on business operations, right? What is the actual operation that you want to happen? And it comes back to that, like, how do you describe the use case, right? And it's all like this: as a something, I want to do X.
Yep.
What they shouldn't be doing is saying, by doing Y, Z, and so on. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of businesses go wrong, because it's felt that like the programming resource is super valuable, super expensive, and shouldn't be spending their time breaking down problems. But in actual fact, I think there's a certain level of breakdown that must be done by the technical person, just because of the nature of what we do. But at the same time, if you give something that isn't fully broken down to somebody at a junior level, they don't know how to break it down, because that's part of your experience as a senior. So there's this weird middle ground that like requirements end up falling into. It's like a strange gap, and I don't know where we draw the lines between the various levels and who should be doing what. And I think if if something or someone, if some standard, for example, comes up with a very clear-cut line for where that should be drawn, I think that would solve a lot of pain in a lot of particularly big businesses, but it happens in small businesses as well.
Yep. One thing I just noticed, while Paul is kind of talking about this topic, you can see here in the commit history, do you see that red, green that's showing up in here? That's basically when you put a PR in a draft mode, it's running the failed pass. This basically is telling you this is really test driven, because if you go from the top, all the way down here, you'll see that the process, fail pass, and then you start kind of going fail pass all the way down. This is beautiful. But also look at this side. This is why we do pure commits, purest approach, because you can see all the people and when they participate and how they participate. It keeps all track of all the people that took part into this effort. This is a beautiful thing.
Did you notice I fixed my little icon bubble?
Oh, finally. Oh God.
Can I add?
How did you fix that pixelized? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add a comment?
Yeah.
We need to change the client exceptions to public too.
The client exceptions?
Yeah. The completion client dependency exception.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Do
another pull request.
Yeah, that's a different. That's in the completions, not the chat completions, right? Yeah, that's completely different.
We gotta do an issue for that, right?
Yeah, create an issue for that first, and just for the community, the people that want to participate. If you have an idea or a change or something like that, always create an issue. Open the discussion. It's probably one of us will kind of engage with you. Very likely Elbic will just either pop up and say, hey, this is, we're supposed to do it this way or that way. It's crazy how the most pressing issue in our repository right now is that we don't know how to centralize the freaking image. We're a bunch of backend engineers. It's not that. It's just the fact that Markdown is not making it so easy for us. And I see other repositories are just making like a big, large image that can kind of span across. And that's their way of centralizing the image, which seems pretty hacky to me, but it's interesting. So anyway, I'm waiting for this build to just finish, and then we'll be able to merge our foundation service. What comes after that is just basically us, and I'm just gonna want to check with the group. It should take around 10 or 20 minutes to basically create a client, create the acceptance test for that client, and to create an integration test for that client, and we're done, right? Do you guys want to do it now, be done with it? Do you want to connect tomorrow? Do you want to do it now and take tomorrow and Monday off? How do you want to play? I don't mind either way.
Same here.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's be done with it. And then we publish a library, and then we'll be happy forever. Okay. Sharf says, I'm so happy that Paul joined OpenAI project. I am glad that I did not crash and stayed awake to hear every word he had to say today. He does say a lot.
Yeah, I do. I probably talk too much, to be fair. But
I feel like with all this streaming and all these sessions, I created my own reality show where we have certain, characters on the show, and everyone has their own stories. It's amazing. I like it. Except that we just don't have to catch each other cheating on each other like these freaking, what do you call them? What is it? What are these shows called, Yusuf, where they just put a bunch of boys and a bunch of girls together? I don't know what they're called.
Oh, you mean like Love Island and stuff like that?
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Who watches this? Do people watch these shows?
I remember. So I remember my stag do, right? And it was my brother sat down next to it. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were in McDonald's, right? It was random as how we even ended up there. And we sat down and we were just munching on our burgers or whatever. And these 2 girls sat next to us. And my brother was like, why don't you like Love Island? He said that to me, right? And these girls just looked at him like, what? And
like, how dare you? How dare you not?
I remember just giving him this look of disapproval. And then the girls were like, but it's so good, isn't it? And then there was this like half-an-hour conversation that ensued from that between my brother and these 2 girls.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you right there. Why is it enjoyable? I just want to understand. Is it the gossip aspect of it?
I don't know, but he came away with their numbers, and I'm like, does it pay to be weird? Like, no standard straight male likes that kind of thing. We're all like, what the heck? What?
You know, these people look at us and be like, these guys are weird. They're a bunch of nerds. You know that, right? Like the feeling isn't mutual here, right? Just like, so it's like if you go to explain that to them, be like, so you guys just sit on Saturday nights just writing code with a bunch of dudes? I'm like, yeah, that's how we do it.
Morning. yeah, pretty much.
I think it's really fun. I think people are getting smarter every session, and I know I am. I'm learning things. To be honest with you, and that's just maybe that's the beautiful thing about this. I've never walked in a place willing to give everything I have and expecting nothing in return, unless I go back with a handful of ideas and a handful of new things in my head. And this has always been the case. Like, I don't expect anything from anybody, but every time I walk in, I'll be like, I'm going to give these people everything I have. And all of a sudden, they just pop up all these new ideas and all these amazing things. And I'm just really humbled by that. Like, it's just really, really, really nice to just see people do that. Okay, I'm going to do the client part. Let's do this. So users, I'm just going to start it, but I'm not going to do it. Hassan, Habib, clients.
Typical Hassan, right? Start a job, never finish it. Get
Yeah.
everyone else to do the work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. Clients, and let's do chats, right? And okay, Paul, I'll get you, dude. Don't worry.
Oh, I know you'll get me. Yeah,
I'll get you.
I see you scheming. I can literally see the smoke coming out of your head, right? From here in England. Yeah. It's like, I'm gonna get that guy.
I'm serious. I'm telling you, I swear to God, I'll come visit London, and I'll travel to whatever suburb or little town. What is it? Where do you live? Whiteshire.
No. It's fine. If you're in London, man, I'll come to you from the Shire. Yeah.
For real?
I'll get in my horse and cart and make my way on out of there. Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna get the horse and cart. That's just so cute.
We have trains, but they are a bit falling apart. So.
All right, and so what are we doing? Chat completion. We're giving that out to the outside world. That's right, and this is fast in chat completion. Send chat completion async. So that's great. We're still gonna need processing services to make this language much better, but there's that.
Is the imperial system still a thing?
What are you talking about? Who
still uses that?
There's the American system, and there's everything else that's wrong.
It's like that, is it?
No, brother. I mean,
as we've already proven on this stream, Americas are not quite there, right? They think they are. They can't even figure out their left from their right. I mean, and with roundabouts being as complicated as they are, I know a big circle on the road is difficult to comprehend. However, like, if you guys can build windows, I'm pretty sure you can work out a circle.
I mean, to be honest. All right, hang on. Why is this guy mad? Inconsistent accessibility. Chat completion service. This guy's not supposed to be public, right? Is it? It's not. So why does it matter? Oh, because that guy is supposed to be internal. We don't expose that guy. Yeah, that's right. And what's going to be external is the so internal, and what's going to be external is the interface of this guy, because we don't want people to kind of have access directly to this little fella. And let's just do try catch here. Return await this dot chat completion service dot send completion async, and here's your chat completion. So that takes care of that. And then we want to handle the same exceptions really that we have on the other client side. So here is all of this.
Is that code in an exposure?
Yeah, we do have code and exposure, just like you have in your controllers, right?
No.
What's that?
No, in my controllers, I literally do like service dot do the thing, and then I return whatever it gives me.
No, that's wrong. Don't do that. For two reasons. The first reason is, if your controller is your exposure, you're supposed to be mapping your exceptions into HTTP codes. Right?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing for libraries. Libraries need to have their own interfaces, their own exceptions at the exposure layer, because the underneath exceptions can be mapped, can be changed all the time. It's an abstraction mechanism, right?
So I think we've had this discussion actually. I think the main reason why I don't have any of that try-catch handling in my controllers is because I mapped it all in middleware, and that's legacy that's still lying around.
If you say middleware one more time, okay. Look, dude, we're gonna have a hard time. This is gonna be a problematic conversation. So no, I mean we're gonna get around it. We're gonna figure it out. But yeah, I don't know where middleware belongs. This is the same conversation I was having with Rafsan Al Hassan. He was talking about handlers and middleware and stuff like that. I'd be like, what does that mean to me? I am a tri-nature guy. I talk about tri-nature of everything. Did my mouse just run out of energy? No, we're good.
It's the same problem as DB context, isn't it? It's like, where does it belong, right? Because it's not one of the three pieces technically. It's an external thing. So any code that you put in there, it's a case of, well, how do you test that?
Exactly. If it doesn't fall within these three, then something is wrong fundamentally, because now you're making up. Look, any system in the world has dependencies and purposes and exposures. So if you're trying to convince me that there's something else out there that can exist within a system that doesn't fall within one of these three, then either you're doing something wrong or I understood the whole universe wrong.
Well, I've got a classic example of that.
Yeah.
iService collection extensions. I think we should be writing a standardized module that can find all standardized components in a library, perhaps using reflection or something, and then recommend that people use that so that we don't have metric crap tons of code, but also that library can be tested, because we could write services to do the reflection work. I know it sort of doesn't really kind of click with you, but my thinking is that if I have a standard compliant library and I want to expose all the stuff in it, if you like, to the service provider, then to my mind it makes sense if there are lots of people out there registering. Like in my case, right, I've got about 150 foundation services in my B2B library, right? Every single one of those is a line of code in an iService collection extension somewhere, right? It's just noise, and it's boilerplate noise as well.
Look at the hashtag Sharaf left for you.
Well, it's not toasted though, is it? Because it would be a tested library. It would be open source. It would be.
I love our community. I just love.
Otherwise, you could argue that like
you got shook, son. You got shook.
Yeah, but you could argue that eventing, right, is the same thing, because we built a library to do that. Because you've built a library to do eventing because it's like a utilitarian function in the same way that like logging is, right? You build libraries to do these things. They are common functions that we have in our code essentially. So my thinking is that there's got to be, and this is where SPAL kind of interests me, right? Because there's got to be a way of doing that for like database access. And like I had a weird shower thought about this project the other night, actually. I was thinking that sat on top of this, we want standard.ai .abstractions assembly that defines a standardized interface, and then we build more libraries just like this one that talk to all the various other AIs. And then on top of that is the stuff that I want to build, which is the cross-purpose, cross-AI, brings it all together and does all the magic trick stuff. But you could argue that that implementation, anything you do on top of AI, is a toaster's problem, right? So, like, where do you go? where do you draw the line and say, oh no, this is not toasters. There's actually some useful function here. Like, to my mind, if I see myself doing something that I identify as boilerplate, I think that's a perfectly valid case to break the toaster's rule and just say, look, I'd rather have something generated that for me because it adds no value to my time. And it's not something that, I really particularly care about. Does that make sense?
Because it doesn't make your application any different from someone else's application, right? So,
exactly. Like initializing a new project, right? So you did a whole 2-hour session on that. What if we had a, like with EF, when you first get started with it, let's say you've got an existing database and you want to build a code first DB context from an existing database. You install the entity framework tooling into Visual Studio using the command, the terminal, right? The package manager console. And then you say, generate me my DB context. So why can't I do that to initialize a new solution in accordance with the standard? Why can't I say, this is my project name, go generate me a solution and open it up?
You will never be able to modify it. You will take away people's ability to go back. By the way, you're not wrong. It's the same argument that the assembly folks and the C and C++ folks were saying when people started using .NET. They said, oh, you lose control. I remember these days, 1997, 1995, people were saying these things. They were saying, oh, so you're just going to use a library that do garbage collection for you. You're going to lose control, right? I'm finding myself, you die a hero and you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? So I'm in this situation where I'm basically saying how, like, if you want to bring someone on your team to modify that code for you, what's that going to look like, Paul?
Well, it's like anything, though. When a new version of .NET comes out, you ultimately get a new version of project templates that come with it, right? So when they bring out like a new function as your functions framework, they bring out a new, if you like, base template project that gets you started with as your functions. And I think it would be the same with the standard. As the standard evolves, what we would do is we would evolve the tooling to build new project structures out in line with the current standard. Because if you look at like the way that you build out a solution from the get-go, I think it would be safe to say that you would argue that that's the recommended practice that you would expect the community to follow as an ideal case. And when they don't, they're doing something that's slightly non-standard. If you can justify it, it's fine. But without justification, we have to consider, okay, are we really going down the right path here, right? So what I think the standard should provide is enough tooling to be able to say, okay, we encourage you to follow best practice by using this tool to get you going. And then if you veer off of the path, so to speak, you do so at your own risk.
Hassan,
but we shouldn't be forcing it.
I think there is an extension for that, right? Like it would,
is.
like there auto generate the foundation service and just generate some unit tests for that.
I mean, Christo did create standardly, right?
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he started down that path. This is it. But I was thinking it would be more like the EF tools, so it could create a solution for you, create all the projects in it, create you, and even better, I've been toying with the idea of, you've seen how I do diagramming.
Yeah.
I was thinking about building a VS plugin that could do diagramming. So if you provided a diagram and said, build me a solution, it would construct all of your entity models for you, not put anything in them, construct a whole bunch of brokers, generate you an EFDB context potentially as an additional optional extra, generate you a bunch of foundation services with a whole bunch of throw not implemented, and generate you your first test. So you've basically got CRUD on every one of those entities in the model. And all of that shit is all boilerplate.
Might as well use OpenAI for that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think OpenAI goes a step further though, because it actually writes the code for you. And at that point, I think we're in no toasters territory, because if you go to OpenAI and say, yeah, write this for me, it's going to write you a full CRUD foundation service completely implemented, but it hasn't done it TDD, so it's broken the rules.
True.
Potentially, though, if we build this library correctly and some tooling on top of it, we could get it to do it TDD. But because of the nature of AI, it wouldn't be consistent. The answers that would come out of it would vary. So I think it's hard to be strict with structure at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 1 second, Brian. You need to get from main. You need a new branch. Maybe, Paul, maybe we can reach that age of automaton where we kind of, my concern is that people will not be able to go back and modify that code, and they wouldn't understand what that code is doing. That's the biggest concern. And that's basically a mistake a lot of senior engineers do, right? They just come into a project, they automate everything. Bunch of juniors come in, they have no idea, they click a bunch of buttons, things happen, but then this one scenario that the seniors didn't take care of, occurs, and now they're stuck because they don't know how the foundations are supposed to work. They don't know how everything is supposed to work, and now you're in this situation. I'm telling you this because this is how the industry have been working for a long time. Smart people come in, they start a new project, they automate everything, they think they're doing themselves and everyone a favor, but they're not.
And I don't think the foundation service usually handles all the exception that we usually handle right now, right? Because it's a case by case scenario by the business. Right?
So
it really heavily depends on what you're integrating with.
So bear in mind what I was suggesting doesn't to some degree even warrant AI at all, because what I was suggesting is we would generate a CRUD foundation service that would have a bunch of methods that would all just throw not implemented exceptions, and then a first test that would say something like should add, should delete, or whatever, and write some basic test code potentially, or could just write an empty test and say, hey, put a to-do comment in there or something to say write your test, then write your service implementation.
So basically just write the logic part, and then the validation exception, you would do it by yourself? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, right, none of it. Just the boilerplate. Literally the empty test class. Then
what favor are you doing people then? They're not doing anything.
Okay, so like when I create a new MVC controller, for example, right? What it also does, if you use the tooling properly, what it'll also do is it will generate you the view file. Now, there's not much in there. It's just, for the most part, it's like when you do, I want a new class in Visual Studio. It just gives you namespace, class, and an empty class, right? But what I'm suggesting is we just go like a step further and we say, okay, foundation services for the most part are just CRUD services, right? So if we know that we're building a stack that's based on some database model that we've modeled out as a standardized diagram, we can say, okay, we've got entities of all these types. Either you give me the predefined, if you like, entity types, or you give me the diagram and I generate you an empty type. And for each type, I generate you a CRUD foundation service not implemented, and you decide what the logic is. But it saves us having to, as programmers, go and create each of those files, if you see what I mean. So it's not much of a time saving, to be fair, if you look at it on like a per file basis. But over, say, like 100 foundation services, if you save 5 minutes of your time, it's a lot of time saved, right?
Well, then, okay, so let's just assume we did that.
Like Sharaf says, it's effectively a standard template for Visual Studio, but a standard solution, so to speak.
That's what Sharaf is saying. Why don't you create just a template project and let that template project kind of do the work, this way? I guess there is. I see what you're saying. There is potentially
I was thinking more like if I had a draw.io diagram, I could say using this diagram, hey, standard, go template me this out. And it could generate you all the files, but not implement anything. Generate you a test project, give you all the test files, but not implement any tests, and say, go on then, off you go write your standard compliant code. But the structure is all put in place for you.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, does it make better sense that we test so I'm thinking about nesting. No, actually do what you're doing. Ignore what I just said. You're fine.
It's a good general rule of thumb.
I think there is a I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna make you pay heavily for that. in sterling. Do people still say sterling pounds?
Sterling, British sterlings, yeah.
British sterling. And do you guys say shilling? Do you still say shilling at all?
God, we haven't had those since before I was born, and I'm old. I don't think my dad even really remembers shillings. And
maybe I'm a time traveler, Paul. Maybe I've seen it all.
my grandfather used to talk about them like back in the day, before we. Yeah.
Sheriff says, I think Paul's idea would help setting guidelines for junior engineers. If the generated code has to do's, oh my God, we're gonna add comments now.
Well, the idea is that standard compliant code doesn't have any comments in it. So if you put out a project structure that has comments in it, and the standard guidelines are replace all these to-dos with an actual standard compliant implementation, then what you're basically doing is you're saying, here's your start point, off you go. But yeah, it's literally what Sharaf is saying there is kind of like, for people that are new to it, what I found was I had some pretty almost silly now misconceptions about how the standard was supposed to work. And like the more I started playing with it and the more I started like sitting down with yourself and doing these kinds of sessions and actually writing code myself, the more I was finding, oh, actually, that was a silly misconception I had. And then I ended up having to go and like refactor things, move things around a lot. And I've still got code that, I'm fairly certain is not like ideal standard compliant code, but it's roughly there. It's good enough for now. And it's on the basis of that typical problem that everybody has, right? I've still got demands to meet from the business. I've still got to deliver things in a somewhat timely fashion. So what I've done is I've said, look, if it's standard compliant in terms of quality demands, and by that I mean, it's tested to the degree that I know it will work, and it was TDD'd and things like that. It's structurally correct. But, if I've missed handling one particular type of exception or something, or the validation's not fully complete because, I didn't know what the answer was at the time I wrote it, that's an acceptable thing. Or if it's like not in quite the ideal namespace, well, that's an easy refactor I can do later. So I don't worry about those kinds of things.
Right.
But if I could have a tool that would be like, okay, give me your project name, give me some idea of what it is you're trying to build, like a model or something in the form of a diagram, and I'll scan through that and I'll build you out that basic structure. So everything will be correct according to how the standard is currently documented. I think that would be a weight off of quite a lot of particularly juniors and to some degree seniors setting up new projects. It's not going to save masses. It's going to be like a few hours of time, but like a few hours saved for a senior developer is quite a big impact on a business at times.
But then this senior developer gets really rusty if they don't have these tools around. They can't structure a project from scratch. You're so hopeless and you're so inert, helplessly dependent on the tools that you don't know how to like Like, I know a lot of people that rely on tools today, toasters. If you give them a notepad and tell them,
Yeah.
hey, write the code for a test-driven service, they'll be like, I don't know, the tool does it for me, right? So they become hopeless. They become very weak. They can't form an idea because most of what they've been doing is to rely on the tool to generate that stuff for them.
Well, Son, I do want to say, like, one thing that could be used is, like, they do use the tool, right? Say because to learn the standard, there's a lot of higher level logic that you just need to focus on at first. And then perhaps after utilizing the tool, so you could focus on the concepts of the standard and then getting those done, you can then strip away one layer and make it more complex. So maybe you get rid of the use of a co-pilot or whatever is helping you assist in creating the technologies that you are now. And you take that layer down. Yeah, that way you're like, because if you try to just go either 0 to 100, right, to learn the standard, to do it from Notepad especially, I feel like that
be
could
hard.
overwhelm people.
Yep.
Yeah, and they might start cutting corners in ways that is going to be worse later on. But if they start from a guardrails, like training wheels, so to speak, and they step backwards until they can do it in a more direct way, even if they don't get to using the notepad, at least they have solid understanding of the standard and they have drilled it in for a certain period of time. What do you think about that?
I think that's really, really good idea. I'm okay with that. Paul, he's basically flipping it upside down. He's saying instead of giving it to the senior so they can get their job done really fast, why don't we give it to the junior so they're like guardrails, right? You're basically helping them. It's like these three-wheeler bicycle or whatever, and then you take the wheels off and tell them off you go.
And I think it's the same to some degree. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a junior, a senior, a principal. At some point, you're new to the standard. And I mean, if you look how large the standard is today, and it's only growing, it's not something that people are going to get right off the bat.
Just so you understand what's documented, and I tell you this in full confidence because I have a whole list of to-dos. I need to share this with the community. What's documented of the standard today is really just 30%. There's a lot of tricks and things that we're doing. Why do you think I'm doing these sessions? So I can bring up these things. And then I go and say, okay, go document this. But you really don't see it. Like Elbic have done some really large, the Git file project from behind the scene. Now he realizes there's a whole lot of things in eventing and things that we're doing behind the scenes that are not documented yet. And it's just either, do we have the time to document this? Do we put it in video? But people learn in different ways. Dude, I'm even inventing this new playback feature in Visual Studio where you just click play and it plays the history of how the code was written, because it's another way people could learn how the code was written. And I want to attach voice and video to it so I can scale, right? If I want to teach someone how to write a broker, I'll be going on Visual Studio, click record, and people could play back this feature and see my voice, see me talking to them while the code is being written in front of them in their IDE, right? I should spend something up sometime before Monday or maybe next week. We'll see. It depends on you guys are keeping me busy with this whole OpenAI thing, but we're trying.
I give it 3 months after you release that, and someone will figure out a way of plugging this into that.
That's what I'm trying to do. If you saw the screenshot, like the screenshot that I published online, by the way, it caught a lot of attention. Like I had some. Do you know Fritz? Do you know who Fritz is, Jeff?
No, I think you missed what I was saying, right?
What?
So they'll go off. They'll write a plugin or something for Visual Studio, right? It'll go off. It'll ask GPT what the answer is. GPT will come back with the block of text, right?
Oh, I see. Well, that's Copilot X.
It'll run that through a voice synthesizer, synthesize your voice, and then talk them through line by line, writing the code.
Probably, but probably.
No toasters.
But it's not. It wouldn't be by the author of the code. Like it still not have the human aspect of it. But you're not wrong. This is what I published basically. I just said to people, hey, you're gonna go on a line of code and you click on a YouTube video, and it'll take you exactly to the moment when that code was written, right? And it went crazy. Like Fritz and these folks, they were like, hey, I have a lot of code. I'd love to use a feature like this. Here's a heart. And a lot of people like that. This person is an educator. Her name is Katya Potinsky. And she basically said, make it more than just YouTube. I want it like there's already, a demand for a feature that I'm just thinking of. Literally just pulled it out of my butt. I'm just telling people, hey, what if we did this? It's like social media meets coding in the middle. And I think that there's a lot of potential there. Anyway, even Corey, do you guys know Tim Corey? I love Tim Corey. You know who that is, right? He's a YouTuber. He'd be. I'm interested. I'd love to see something like this.
What's the mapping here, guys? I'm a bit lost here.
The mapping. Let's go back to Brian. The mapping of what? You're creating a chat completion response, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's inside external choice? So if you type in external choice dot messages,
it's not there.
Or message. It's not coming, then we're probably.
Brian, can you scroll up? I think you made the same mistake I made.
What did I do, man?
Yeah, it's chat completion. Oh wait, yeah. Okay, I thought it was completion.
No, he did make the same mistake. Look, he's saying external completion response instead of external chat completion response.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Copy pasta. Copy pasta. Okay, Brian, do your thing. You're gonna have to map this guy though.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to create a new local message, and this local message will do that.
How do you get visibility, Hassan, of your event chaining?
You son of a gun. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I had a manager, his name was James Gagne at Microsoft, and I showed him something online that a company has published, and I said, can we visualize logging? Can we visualize logging, right? Like you get to see in a dashboard or a portal your data going through all your events and going through all that.
So your answer is the way that you understand your event chains is through the log history.
So every event should generate an ID and keep the existing ID. So there is main ID and then inner ID.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah. Because they're like timelines, like a tree. They could branch out like this, right?
Yeah, I took a different approach to that.
What did you do? Oh, God. Do I want to know? Go ahead. Tell me.
So what I did was I found... Yeah. So what I did was I found that there was kind of two problems with the way that we handle events in the standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, as I saw it, was there's a lot of noise in the unit tests when we want to test event handlers, because you have to effectively trigger the calling of a private method because it's not part of the public interface. So the first thing I did was I said, well, let's just make them public because that's a function of what that service is doing.
Mm-hmm.
That then made the event handlers themselves just as testable as any other part of that service.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next thing I did was I created effectively like an event handlers class, it looks much like our iService collections stuff does at the moment. But instead of calling listen to events on everything, there's a Lambda that says, okay, for this event, this Lambda expression is going to pass in the service provider, and the service provider is going to instance all of the orchestrations that handle this event and pass it to them. Now, I haven't fully formed the complete answer to this because I think that I know exactly where you're going to go next, which is going to be, try nature, which part of the stack is that? So my next plan was to go, okay, how could I now bring that back in so that it was fully trinatured and back to being standard compliant? And it was interesting because I was talking about the way that I do EF on the bottom of the stack the other day in the chat, and somebody mentioned that so the way that I've broken it down is that I have all these methods that are like per entity for setting up the model information.
Right.
And he said, oh, there's an interface for that, and you can create a class per entity. It's a generic interface, so you can say, hey, here's my model setup information for a T. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because that would allow me to bring some consistency between EF and event handling, because I can say, this is some model configuration and this is some event handling configuration, as essentially, so that it's kind of like two generic kind of configuration interfaces essentially, and each implementation would be like per entity or per event.
Right.
So it's kind of where I'm going at the moment, but I know that at the moment my solution isn't fully standard compliant, but it does mean that my current implementation is just like we do with our services. It's a partial class, so I can drill down into it, and for any given event I can look at a single Lambda expression and I can see across my entire application, but not just that application. I can see when this stack is configured, these are the things that handle the event. So what I ran into, particularly with eventing, was I wanted to set up events for when I'm doing my testing. All events were internal, right? So that I could spin up the thing locally, and I could follow the entire event chain down and make sure that all my business logic happened. When I deploy it into a production environment, what I wanted to say was this subset of events wouldn't be internal. They would go off to service bus and say some Azure function would handle the event, and then the chain would carry on from there inside that. But what I didn't want to do was write different logic for those two different scenarios. So what I've currently got is an implementation where it doesn't matter which of those scenarios I have. At the application level, the app decides whether or not there is an external hub available, an external event hub, which is part of my eventing library.
Does it talk to actual external resources, or is it just external local? Like, are you actually talking to Azure Event Hub, or are you actually talking to just something like Levent?
Yeah. So in the event that the irony, right? No pun intended. But in the event that I have an external event, I talk to an external event hub from the internal event hub. The internal event hub accepts an interface of iEvent Hub, essentially, which is part of my infrastructure. And what it does is it says, okay, if the external event hub is available in the handler,
then switch to,
it will pass certain events off to the external. Otherwise, if it's not, just raise it as an internal event. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
So what that does is I can choose between providing a hub instance and providing a null, essentially. And if I provide a null, it falls back to everything's local. And to my mind, that was a nice way of getting sort of somewhat spal with configurationable sort of, layering on my events. But I'm not quite 100% that you would agree with the solution as it is, but I think it's getting close to something that you would agree with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, worst case scenario is that you're going to come up with something that's like something that will either inspire a change, or it will cause us to think about, how we program things, how we do things. So
I'm just curious if you get any feedback from the community, or if anyone in the community wants to sort of chime in on this. It would be really interesting to see, because to my mind, some of the most complex problems I have in my business logic are I've raised some event, I'm expecting a chain of things to happen, and some parts of that chain didn't happen, and I don't know why. And now I have to go and figure out where all the handlers should be. So as it's documented in the standard currently, I would have to go digging through all my orchestration services and follow the chain manually. Whereas actually the way that I've got it, I can go to this one event handlers class. I can look for the specific event that's a problem. I can put a breakpoint in there. The service provider's
You can catch it from there.
Yeah.
So
Now-
guys, do I process? Sorry, to interrupt.
Carry on.
Do I process this as a list? Do I make this as a sorry? Do I put a hang out select off the end of this, which I don't think you guys would agree with? What do I do here?
Brian, why don't you just do what we did in the biz logic of the method, right? So you're gonna create so you have convert to completion request, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you mean external completion request. Why don't you just go to the foundation service where we wrote that method and just use that?
Yeah. Copy paste it.
Yeah.
I'm lost. I really am.
So go standard AI, OpenAI.
Yeah.
And just take in the services, open services foundations, and then in chat completions, and then you have the chat completion service. Yeah, and just take what we did there. Yeah, it's all done, said and done in here. The only thing you would need to do though, which is no, you have both. You have the mapping back and forth. You should be able to.
So take this method.
Take what you need. I mean,
Yeah.
what do? Right. But then, Paul, going back to your point, yeah, tracking the events going back and forth like that.
It's tricky.
Just be careful because you're just one hair away, just one little bit away from creating a single point of failure.
Yeah. So what I've realized is that if I look at across the breadth and depth of my system, right,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain events that have to happen sequentially, so in order.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain events that when raised, all of the handlers can handle them in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And in the event that, for example, you raise an event and you've got these parallel handlers taking place, and one of them fails, you don't know what really the case is until they've all come back. And then you've got to figure out the rollbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I came to the conclusion of was that I've got this event handlers partial class, and one, you're right, it's a single point of failure. So I went, okay, that's not ideal straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I'm now looking at having try catch in there and rollback logic and things like that potentially. So I'm thinking, okay, there's clearly a need for there to be some sort of service here, but this service depends on the service provider. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. If we talk about dependency injection and we talk about injecting our service provider into a service, that's a big no-no. So that got me thinking about
why do people keep saying that? Like I heard Rami, I think, or someone else was saying the same thing. Oh, just pass in the service provider. Oh, was it Christo? Someone was saying, hey, why don't you just pass the service provider into the service? No, it's not localized model. It's external. Best case scenario, it's native to the framework that you're using. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's against everything we're trying to do.
Yeah, and the bottom line is whenever you see iService provider passed into something, you should sit there and ask yourself, what does this thing really depend on? Because there's no way you can possibly tell short of reading that code. Because, if you're passing the service provider in, potentially that service provider can be used to construct literally anything. And this is where the rules go out the window. So if you've got this hierarchy like we have in the standard, where we say, okay, orchestration services can only depend on processing services, which can only depend on foundation services. Now I've got some coordination service, let's say, that depends on iService provider. I don't know that isn't instancing a foundation service. And I can't ensure structurally with, basic validations from a code review point of view that is actually the case. I now have to read the entire class to ensure that on every commit that isn't the case. So I got to thinking that much like with EF, when we do our model configurations, we have this generic interface where we can say, hey, for this model, these are our configurations. I wondered if it was the same case for like eventing, where I can say, hey, for this kind of event, when I get this kind of event, this is the class that's going to handle it. It's not really a service. It's more of like a configurations thing. But it means that that needs to then depend on something, which is essentially an orchestrator that's going to sit on top of n number of orchestration services. So I'm pretty much guaranteed that whatever that then instances and consumes for any given event is going to have dependencies that are going to be more than what would be accepted by the 2-3 rule, because we can have any number of things handling an event, right?
Yeah.
But to my mind, it boils down to, if I can have 1,000 things handle an event, then I'm probably doing something wrong in my business logic. But if I can have, say, 10 things handle an event, it could be reasonable. It's probably a little bit excessive. But if I had like 4 or 5, depending on your data model, that could probably be considered fairly acceptable. So I'm now in this situation where I've got a lot of complexity because of the nature of what eventing is. I don't really want to put business logic up there, but due to scenarios like rollbacks in the event of a failure, there is something there, right? But yeah, eventing, I still don't feel is a fully solved problem in the standard, in that it probably feels like it's a complex enough problem that there isn't one potential solution to it. There might be multiple. I don't know, but what I'm doing is I'm just gradually evolving my code base to fit the scenarios that I'm seeing.
You're probably pushing the boundaries of some of the cul-de-sac and Levent concepts here, and that's okay. That's how we get uncomfortable, and then we build something that might be worth its weight of salt. So don't be discouraged. Just 2 things for you. First of all, don't be discouraged that there are no answers, because that basically means that you have gone to a place we have never been. Do you understand? You've already been doing that multiple times, right? You go to places we have never been. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2.
You've said yourself, like the number of times that like I've said something to you and you've gone off on one at me, and then like a year later you've come back and gone, actually you had something there.
Yeah.
I think I'm in that territory, and at the moment I'm absolutely 100% comfortable with the fact that it isn't standard compliant, but it's part way to something.
It will inspire these answers. It will inspire. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I was chatting with Yusuf once. We were working on something, and he was telling me, hey, how does the standard implement retry? How do I do retry? Do you remember that, Yusuf, when we were talking about retry, and when do we stop, and how do you test that we retried multiple times, and all of that? Just the question itself and the togetherness. Just think about this, the togetherness. You're standing up next to someone who has a purpose, and you have ideas, and you're bouncing these ideas back and forth. It's tremendously more impactful than just you're trying to access this area that you've never been on your own, because you might be discouraged. You might run out of fuel so fast. I mean, it's a little cliche and cheesy, but they always say that. They say, alone you can go fast, but together you can go far. Right. So if that's the case, this is basically what you're doing. You just go in the dark for like a week or 2, and then you come back and I yell at you. I'd be like, no, this is completely wrong. But, to be honest with you, like 100 sessions, 100.
Hopefully not the yelling part.
Not the yelling part. I'm starting to learn something. I'm starting to think to myself and say, this guy's up to something. His business is very complicated, and somehow he's trying to pull the standard, to pull it down according to the standard. Again, I'm telling you, SPAL was your idea, dude. I just wanted people to be very aware. You went and did this builder, this little factory. And then I started to think to myself, wait a second, this British weirdo is actually right. So wait a second. He's actually up to something. He's just trying to tell me something through code. You know what I do, Paul? I take ideas, amazing ideas like these, and I just polish them and I sell them.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I will go extreme lengths to make people understand them. You said it yourself. You said the standard is not simple. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. There's all these little rules, right? Like, just for the people watching, while we're pairing, if you see the private chat, it's Ricky and Elbic just going crazy. Like, oh, don't forget this piece. Oh, don't forget this piece. Don't forget that part. Why are they doing that? Because there are all these little pieces. And is all of this documented? 30%, you know?
I guess it's just instincts, you know?
Instincts, yes.
Yeah, it's just...
You also have to know the standard treats our brains, or the brains of engineers, as a story processor, not as a data processors, because we're not computation engines. We're story engines. Our brains can connect more to events and stories. Like, you will imagine us sitting right here, right now, after midnight, and basically talking to each other and saying, hey, what about this idea, that idea? At some point in time, just becomes second nature. Like, your brain is already, oh, I heard this somewhere before. I don't remember. It's probably Paul Wardy, but maybe, you know.
Probably. It's funny because, like, I mean, you were referring to the 100 sessions we've had of OData. That doesn't include the many, many, many hours in between sessions of me going, what about this? And you going, no, that's not going to work because it's not something that we can publish as standard compliant. We have to find a standard compliant answer to it. And then I go off down into one of those rabbit holes. And like, by the next session, I normally come out and then it's like, Sam, I've got 90% of an idea here. Fill in the other 10%. And then Sam's like, oh, yeah, that's dead easy. I don't know why you're struggling with it. And then he just knocks it together. And I'm like, oh, seriously, how did I miss that?
But by the way, I told him about OpenAI and all that. He said, absolutely, I'd love to. He's just, you have to know, Sam, you know, he said to me, you know, we had this private session, and he said to me, like, you know, I wish I could do every day this pairing sessions, hanging out with you and Paul and people that come in and out. You know, it seems like work is very different, right? Work is very different. Ricky, can you take this branch, right, and fix anywhere it says prompt, flip it to send, including the file name, and just take one quick scan before we merge that PR. Thank you, Brian. I know you kind of went fast through this. You're fighting with it a little bit, but you made it.
Trying to listen to Paul at the same time was very distracting.
That's the hard part, you know. That's the hard part.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I do talk too much, but I like to bring up sort of all the conversations that we're having in the community, because I think that like a lot of it gets lost, right? That despite the fact that Hassan does so many sessions that are centered around all the various projects and things that we're doing, and even like standard discussions that are just about the standard, I feel like there is so much stuff that is just like no one talks about. And I like to just sort of bring these things.
No one wants to talk about enterprise system. It doesn't sell. Like, if you look at the topic of the videos that you saw, I have some videos that cannot go up to 40,000 views. But do you know what's the problem with these videos? It's kiddie stuff. It doesn't really show you what it's like to design systems that millions of people are going to be using, right? It's like doing it's like the difference between, you know, going out there and like, look at our version of videos is really the equivalent of this. You know, there are videos of these of people that are doing humanitarian work. They actually go to Somalia. They go to some places in Africa and Asia, people that are really impacted by disasters, and they try to help them, right? Look at the views on these videos, and then look at the views on things like gold diggers, catching a gold digger or dropping an iPhone from the 9th floor or whatever that case may be. The real stuff and the things that are really important and actually sometimes most of the time useful, you know, it's just not that it doesn't stimulate the brain like the, you know, like the Love Island, like like shows and stuff like that. So Gregory says, Brian, that was very intriguing watching you and listening to the convo. Good job. See, I like Gregory. Gregory's got you air support right there. we need to get Brian one of those what do they call them, Yusuf? The ones that we that we went to get one of them, the lights that you put in front of the screen. What do you call that? Headlights or whatever.
Yeah.
Lights like the cube.
Yeah, these little things. That
Oh yeah.
I need to get Brian one of these because we're all dark mode, so the poor guy is barely there. You know what I mean?
I should put some of my monitors on a pure white screen.
Okay, I
Just
don't
watch
even.
Sam do some coding for a bit. You'll be blind then.
Sam, you know he switched it to dark mode and then he switched it back to light mode.
Did he?
Yep. He just
I bet he
decided
only switched to keep us happy for one session. It was like, no, can't work like this. Those guys are crazy.
Okay, Ricky, open up that PR. Let's go.
Yeah.
So let's have Mabruk do the final one. Integration test. Mabruk, do you have the keys? This guy fell asleep. Where is he?
It's 10 here.
It's 10 o'clock in Germany.
Yeah.
7 p.m. on a Sunday night here. I've had no weekend.
4 a.m.
4 a.m. 4 a.m. for Ricky, 1 a.m. for me and Yusuf. Dang. What are we doing with our lives? I mean, we're building something useful. It's going to help a lot of people. I know that. Okay, Ricky, do you have the pull request? Yeah.
Going to end the session your time.
Oh,
at
my
the
bad.
time it started my time.
What time is it for you now, Paul? Is it like 8?
It's coming up to 9 o'clock because clocks went forwards, didn't they? Early this morning in the UK. So.
Oh, they switched things for you right now?
Yeah.
They switched things for us like a couple of days ago, but all right, here we go. OpenAI.
Can I have the issue number?
Can you have the
issue number?
Oh, the issue number. It's let's see here. We're looking for acceptance, so that's 129.
129. Got it.
Is it out?
So you guys saw I've been playing with the stream response. What do you think of me making that an async enumerable of type string?
I think it's perfect. I love it. Paul, do you know what Brian's talking about? We lost Paul there for a second.
Can you just take us back to that? Is it your screen that we're seeing here, Brian?
No. I'm not showing you anything. I'm just saying. So we've been looking at. So normally when you post a response, when you post a completion, you get back an object, but you can actually get back a stream. And so I've been looking at how to handle the stream, and been converting it to an async and enumerable of type string. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the demonstration. You've seen the demonstrations where they type something in and the text comes back like word at a time. This is because they're processing the stream. You see.
Yeah, I kind of imagine that like the OpenAI UI for ChatGPT is like a Signal R client, and it's just sending back like one word at a time off as it gets generated by the back end. So it amuses me that their API isn't actually returning a streamed response in the same way.
Let's go, Mabruk.
It does. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I captured that stream. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's sweet. I think so. So the streaming part of it is really important. If we're gonna kind of show people an example of, working with chat on a Blazor application, stuff like that, it would be even wild if we could use like, what is it, Brian, that opens up a communication between the server and the client? Like it's Signal R. Signal R. So something to that effect would be wild. Be perfect. All right, Mabruk, take it home.
Integration, right?
Yeah. Do you have the keys? Do you want keys?
I need keys.
I'll send you the keys. Good. Do you know how to set the keys up in an environment variable?
I guess I know.
All right, I just sent you the key, and also the organization ID is the org ID is here's the org ID. I don't know if you need the org ID, but You can try the org ID.
Okay.
Integrations dash chat dash completions dash send.
Do you know if you pay for OpenAI's, they've got like a GPT Plus thing that you can subscribe to for $20 a month?
That's what I'm paying for.
Does that give you API access as well?
Yeah.
Ah,
Sure.
nice. I was
Yeah.
debating doing it because I really want to play with GPT-4 and all this new plugin stuff because I've got some crazy ideas of what to do with it.
Well, no, ChatGPT is making everyone kind of come up with the most creative ideas.
Yeah.
I just saw a website called Plur.ai. You just give it your company name and the description, and it will generate a website for you the way you want, you know, and you could just take that HTML and smash it on a CDN or a, you know, Azure static website or whatever, and you're done in a minute. So that's pretty sweet.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, Mabruk, do you remember how to set up these variables or no?
Yep, I guess I can find it. Let me write the test.
Let's just write the test first, and then we can conversate. This is the hardest one, almost as hard as Brian's. Brian is like, screw you, dude. You made me do the hardest one. All right, man, let's go.
That was so public. Okay, pasta.
We're gonna copy pasta. You're gonna go full Italian here. Okay, do it. Do it.
Yeah, all right.
I had Callum come back to me a few weeks back.
Oh, really?
He said, I don't get this. He said, why is it that so many companies out there are still running on like .NET 4? Like, why haven't they upgraded their code bases?
Because engineers still ask business for permission about things they don't understand. Like if you're a software engineer and you're going up to the business or management telling them, hey, we need to upgrade to .NET 7. They don't give a crap. They don't maintain this code. Why do you think they're going to give you any good answer about that? They'll be like, why? What's the need for it? And then the engineers like this position where they're saying, oh, we need to maintain the code. And this is part of maintenance. And then the business will be like, is it faster? Is it better? It's just nonsense questions.
I know in a company I used to work, they still maintain VB6 codes. So yeah, that's telling you a lot.
That's just engineers dropping the ball.
Yeah.
You know? I'm in a very unique, well, it's not unique, but it's common. So I work in fintech. And you see a lot of like banks that are still running on Fortran and COBOL and like the really early languages. And the main reasoning for that is like, if a system is doing computations that's out by fractions of a penny for like, you know, a large bank, the cost there is still millions. So it cannot be wrong. And they use that as an excuse to say, well, our system now has, say, 40, 50 years even worth of corrections and business logic. We can't just replace that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at kind of the sort of things that are going on in government in the UK at the moment. And they're talking about defining a new, basically crypto-based Bank of England backed currency to replace the pound at some point. And I'm sitting here thinking, how the hell are they going to do that on Fortran? They ain't. So at some point, the whole banking system is either going to crash.
It's just going to crash. It's just going to come down to a halt.
Or they're going to need like whole communities of people like us that strive ourselves on standards that are so high they go above and beyond what the average developer's doing.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see what like people that are building like Musk's lot at SpaceX, like what are they doing with rocket control systems? What are they doing with flight computers? That sort of stuff to make sure that everything is correct. I know that a lot of the answers are like they have multiple systems, for example, so they'll have more than one computer that will run the same math. They'll, like in many cases I've seen, they'll run like 8 computers, and if one of them's wrong, they ignore the one that's wrong, and the other, you know, the other 7 have clearly got it right, because they agree with one another. And when I really started digging into this, I found the craziest reason as to why your average commercial airline has 8 flight computers in it. Do you want to know what the reason is?
What?
It's because of neutrinos, believe it or not, cause. So when you're at high altitude,
You have to restart. Go ahead.
What happens is neutrinos get through from the sun, and they can cause bit shifts in individual transistors inside a CPU, which will cause logical errors, which will crash systems. And they've done so much testing, they've been able to account for even that. And I'm like, that takes a level of mindset that, like, you or I just never face. Like, we don't have to deal with that. Like, when you're dealing with business apps, it's just... So I'm thinking, like, what's the software equivalent of that? It doesn't exist, right?
It's ridiculous, man.
It's so crazy. But yeah, I got to thinking, oh, geez, like, how could we make sure that anything we write was definitely correct?
It's not about being definitely correct, but mostly about just being solid enough that even if it becomes harder to maintain, it's easy to rewrite. That's the trick. I'm writing rewritable software that you can look at and be like, okay, all of this is wrong, but I know exactly what it's trying to do. That's like the bare minimum of any maintainable software, at least to be rewritable, easy to understand, right? Of course, what we're shooting for with the standard is scalability, maintainability, but there's a bare minimum there.
If the Bank of England came to you tomorrow and said, look, we're ripping out the pound, we need a replacement for it, where do you go with that? Like, that is just like such an insane problem.
And they'll tell you we need it yesterday. What do you need? 20 engineers to be like, you can't make a baby in 1 month by making 9 women pregnant for 1 month. It just doesn't work that way for 1 month. It's just not that's not how the world works. But anyway, look at this moment of truth. Let's go, Mabruk.
Hassan, should we make the change now, or do we still create an issue for that?
Oh, let's do it now.
Okay.
Here we go. He jumps. He dunks. He scores. It should be under this yellow arrow thing.
Oh, this one.
Ooh. So someone suggested this the other day. Can you go back, Mabruk? Can you in the minimize that window, that test window? Someone suggested this the other day. They said, if you really want a verifiable integration test, you want to basically say in the content, say hello. And we need to look for, like, type in there, say hello. Right? And then go into the response, put a breakpoint and see what the API is going to be responding with. Put that in debug. So what they basically suggested is that, this could be a red herring, that your response is not null. It could be a response of completely false information. So why don't you verify? And I was like, that's outside of the scope of integration. But let's give it a shot.
I'd go a step further and send it something like, hello, my name is some random string. Greet me.
Damn.
And then look for that random string.
But then you're testing OpenAI. That's not the point. I'm not trying to test OpenAI. I'm trying to just say, is it functional? Did it say hello to you?
No.
What's it say? Go into choices.
Choices.
And then open choices, and then message.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. How can I assist? Yeah, I think it's okay. I think the way we're doing it now is fine. It's okay.
Should I make use another rule here?
it doesn't matter. Just say hello. I think hello is fine. Just do Control Z on that one. The one that I'm really concerned about is what Ricky was saying. You know, we shouldn't say post chat completion. It should be send chat completion. So we should do that. But this is definitely a successful endeavor right there. So I will do a release. Go ahead, Paul.
I think we should simplify our exposure as well. So we accept a string and we return a string.
Oh, believe me, we will do that. We will build some processing. I was just one of the biggest reasons I pulled in Yusuf Core into this is because, you know, he's gonna put that kind of mind energy into simplifying the experience. Like basically, hey Yusuf, let's go build the processing service. What's simple? How do you define simple? It's the hardest thing to ask a software engineer because our brains are complex by like our day job is to solve complex things by nature, by default. So to bring yourself back up to that level 0, which is a big principle in the standard, stay at level 0. That's a huge, huge piece. Okay, dude, open the PR. Let's go. Let's do a release. Let's ship it out.
Did Mabruk already change the method name?
Mabruk, did you change the method name? It should say send. It should say send.
This one?
Yeah, change the name of this. Make it
I
say
thought
send.
you will make it another. Okay.
So just change the name here and then do control period. That will fix everything for you. That's it. Full library end to end. Did it actually change everything?
Yep.
Good. Do a build and run all the tests again. All the tests. Also uncheck the skip part from the other integration tests. I want to run everything. Unit, acceptance, integration, moment of truth. Pull it all out. And then when you make your commit, put the skip back. Let's do this. Moment of truth. Where's your test, son? I want to see the nice green stuff.
I saw a bit of chatter around like having tests that were only run in certain environments or under certain conditions. What are your thoughts on that? I didn't like that at all.
What? What are you talking about? Like, do you want your build to cost you 10 cents every round?
It's not so much that. It's more, my view is when I deploy into an environment, I want to know that every aspect of that environment is correct and working. So the logical conclusion is run all my tests.
Well, run all. Well, you just said run all my tests. Run which type of your tests? Unit, acceptance, integrations?
The whole lot. So
well,
you run your units
can't do
as
that.
part of, you run your units and possibly your acceptances as part of your build. You then deploy it and run your end-to-ends on the environment.
That's the plan. That's what we're trying to say.
Mabruk, I think you need to put the skips.
Put the skip, brother.
Yeah.
We need to talk about unit tests for aligning the properties.
Unit test for?
The property names and making sure people don't change our property names on us.
Oh yeah, so that's actually a good topic, Brian. So someone over the weekend, I think it was last week, they basically changed, you know, the JSON property from prompt to prompts, thinking that we're calling it prompts, but the model, the crappy model of OpenAI, basically says prompt, even though it's expecting a list of things. That's one of the crappy things that we're dealing with. Even worse, it accepts both. It accepts one prompt versus many prompts in the singular versus array form. Not an array with one item, but just a singular form. So we need to guard against that. And I think acceptance test is a great place to kind of go and say, you know, here's my expectation. But in order for that to happen, we're going to have to create our own external model completely separate in the acceptance tests that does this serialization and maps the internal model serialization to the serialization of that. I think I have a plan for it, Brian. I think we just need to write an issue for it. Do we have an issue for it yet? You don't need async. You don't need async.
Okay.
We can create an issue for it and just create an issue and describe the problem exactly and think we should be good. Search for integration. Just type integrations. There you go. Integration, and then we should have should.
This
Yep,
one, send message.
Yep. That's it.
Okay.
I think you might be missing a skip for the other integration test. Just letting you know.
I guess I did it for both. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Wow. End to end, huh? Okay. Elbic, do I have an issue for release?
Yes.
I do.
Yes, we have.
Okay, let's merge this in. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll take
Welcome.
this back.
Anytime.
Let's do this. Let's go into this is a moment of truth. This is what this is all. We basically kind of coupled two sessions together, and I think it's totally worth it because, you know, this is basically me saying people are getting more and more comfortable with what we're doing here. And there will be a point in time where I want to run multiple sessions simultaneously. So the European session is doing the models, retrieval models. The American time zone session would be, you know, run all the, well, it's more like a, what do you call it, Brian? Okeanos? You're like this area where there's Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, this bunch of islands that are sitting there. There is a name for them. Even when they qualify for World Cup, they have like a region name for this whole area. I just don't remember. I'm basically saying it wrong, I guess. But anyway,
Oceania, I think it's called. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do a release. So I'm just gonna go down here, and I'm gonna pull latest from main. Just gonna make sure that we have the code that we say we have, and then Elbic, do you want to do us a favor once this is published to test it on a quick console app? Yeah? No? Don't want to do it?
Sure, sure.
Okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna do this. So just making sure things are there. Chat completions on the unit, on the integrations. This is what Mr. Mabruk did. Very, very good work there. And then I'm gonna create a new branch, users, Hassan Habib / releases. Chris did the two. We already added the piece about you know, adding releases on clients because that wasn't in the terminology of the pull request that we create according to the standard. So that should take care of it. So releases, and then I'm saying version, you know, 2.0.2. So let's go and create this one. What I'm going to do basically is that I'm going to switch mode here from debug into release. And then I'm going to go and go to the properties of this project. Let me increase the screen size here because I kind of didn't think we're going to go back to me. So I went back to 100%. But I guess we're back here. So you guys can see it better now, I hope. If you go into the package area, instead of it saying, you know, now it's saying 0.2, and then the description, and then there is release notes. There's a couple of places where we have to change. There you go. This is a beta release that now offers both completions and chat completions. Put this as 2, put this as 2, and then I think that's pretty much all of them. Let's rebuild this thing. So once I rebuild this thing in release mode, that it's basically going to produce a file for me. This file is basically what I'm going to take and publish to NuGet.org. Let's do this real quick. So if you look here into this file folder, you're going to find in here under the bin releases, here it is, standard.ai.openai 0.2. That's what I'm going to navigate to publish to NuGet.org. I'm going to do this real quick. Let's go over here. We really tested the hell out of it, you know. Let's go to NuGet.org. Here's a sign in, log in with Microsoft. 1,000 accounts. Let's find the one account that I really care about, which is not here. I think it's gonna send me like a notification or something. Yep. Here we go. Secure, ultimate secure. Because this account, like, if at this point in time with 88,000 downloads on RESTful Sense, if we do something wrong with this library and people pull that library in, that's a poison bell. It could take an entire enterprise system down. Once people upgrade. But I hope people have the wisdom not to do something without checking and making sure that the notes match. Okay, navigating to the place where that release is at. Here it is. I'm just making sure. So this is version 0.2 standard. Here's the information description. This is beta release that offers both completions and chat completions. Now the project URL is good. The repository URL is good. And it's picking up we still didn't fix our documentation, but it's okay. We'll get there. The one I cared about the most though is this is gonna need to change in the documentation. So instead of it saying OpenAI.net, it needs to say standard.ai.openai. But the examples here are real. These examples now work perfectly fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and submit this. It's gonna take a second. We're up to 66 downloads, and our repository, I think, reached up to 114 stars. Here's one from me. I try to keep it always odd, so I go uncheck and check all the time because I'm crazy. But this is where we're at, and then once that's released, let me create that pull request for the release while I'm at it. So here is releases. Let me just go back to this screen while this guy's building. Be on standby, create a console application because you're going to pull that library in. You already have the organization name and the key in there. So this is version v0.20, and then here is a push from me.
Out of curiosity, Hassan, why do we not create a project that can generate a YAML file that can do this?
YAML file that do what?
Push to NuGet.
Oh, we need to add that task in the A.NET. You know about A.NET, right? Do you not?
That's what I was referencing. Yeah. So we do the build file through that, don't we, to verify that everything is building and passing tests and whatnot. So why not just add the extra step when there's a given tag or marker on the branch being merged or something that says, "Hey, this is a release."
That's definitely something that we have. Infra, automate, NuGet, publish, and it's very easy. By the way, it's not that hard. I just need to like right now. I'm just really on develop, push code. Let's just get out there. But once we get to a good point where the library is stable, I want to automate. It's really easy. By the way, I just need to kind of do it. that's the problem.
Well, this is it. I mean, you just jumped through like 20 minutes of hoops, and I was thinking, what? Surely this is part of A.NET.
We can do this as part of A.NET. We can definitely do that. Where's the library? The library should be here. It is standard OpenAI. We'll give it just a second. It takes a second to index and then basically populate. Elbic, I know it's a hard thing to figure out because it's just weird, but figure out this for me because this is a problem that's across all my other libraries, not just this one. So if you look any library, especially RESTful Sense, almost reaching 100,000 downloads, 100,000 downloads on this library, and look at the documentation, garbage, really, really bad, and we shouldn't. Like, how do we tell people we really go for high quality software when our exposure layer, which is NuGet.org or, it's just trash like that? It's just sad.
That code in the markdown files as well plays havoc with my Discord standard bot code. I have to unpick that. It's such a faff because it's the only raw HTML markup that appears anywhere in the documentation.
Yeah.
Such a faff.
Yeah. Look what these guys did. They basically made an image that's so wide so they don't have to deal with that. I don't know I don't know if this NuGet Package Explorer is a thing that you find. Let's see, NuGet Package. Oh my God, Package Explorer. Is this a thing? I know it's published with Microsoft. I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but I know that people, when they publish things like these, somehow they figure out a way to, skip that part. I really want a picture to go in there. It would be really fun. If we're saying we're building high class things, we should kind of really, probably, 9 people out of 10. I think you're ready. All right, Elbic, let's go.
Yeah.
Before we celebrate this, let's just make sure that, let's go, son, make it happen.
So I have here the API keys. So
Yeah.
Let me go
Just
and
upgrade the library. Yeah.
Sure.
I have a
Come on.
question. Have
There
you
it
tried
is.
just putting the raw URL to the image in there and seeing what it does with it as part of processing the markdown file?
They have, so just the URL is not enough. They have whitelisted domains where it can pull images. So even if your code is good, it's still going to tell you no show until you, a lot of things have changed, dude. So by the way, Ricky, we should change this whole API configuration to say OpenAI API configuration, because API configuration is such an overloaded kind of term. It's going to kill us. It's going to kill us. So yeah, let's do it. And by the way, Elbic, feel free to create like a repository for like, we're gonna call it examples. We can make it a part of the project itself, and it's just a console application actually trying the library externally. I'm totally fine with that. So I guess in your case here, there's no prompt; it's messages now, right?
Yeah, and the model should be different, right?
Oh, the model's there. What's the model, Mabruk, that you're trying?
GPT
-3. Yeah.
There's 3.5 turbo.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think we should switch that to an enum.
Oh, we really should. Oh, we've talked about that for extensively.
Yeah.
I like how you're just asking. This is why Brian is laughing, because
It's like the
I
hot
literally
topic.
I literally said $25 for anyone who would just help me out with, understanding, what's going on, because a lot of people have tried. Nobody still claimed the prize because we still don't have a solution. It's just the language working against you in this manner.
For the model names?
Yeah, so we need some enum that would give you the option to pass in raw values, but also at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like for custom models, you'd have to pass in a string that's specific, not an enum. It wouldn't be listening. I think so. There's a library that I've used. I mean, Hassan, you've used libraries as well for the OpenAI, like C#, not standardized. What do you think about those? Some of them do use enums, and then they also allow you to pass in a value. I don't really know how it works, but I was curious on what you thought of, if you found anything interesting.
I think it's definitely interesting. I just need to.
Does this come back to my point about the URLs and configurations for that? In the potentially what we could do is just define different types of client, ones that are specific to each API model, and then I say API model. So like OpenAI have their own ChatGPT with their own supported set of models, but you can also get a custom one from them, right? So you could default to a known given, the latest kind of current released model, and then allow the string to override it. So there's none of this weird like type inference stuff going on. But out of the box, you wouldn't have to specify that at all. In fact, I think I even raised a ticket about it on the repo to just say, hey, make that a default somewhere as part of defining the client. So it's not something you have to keep passing with every completion request. It seems daft to me, but like if you're having a conversation with the AI, presumably you pick a model at the beginning of the conversation, then you use the same model the whole way through the conversation, right? You don't do it per message.
Yep.
It just seems bizarre.
Elbic, we didn't see nothing.
Oh, I was screaming with happiness.
Oh,
This
come
is the
on.
result.
I saw you were screaming. I said, okay, it worked, but
All right, here is the result. So hello there, how can I assist with your English?
so what
today?
system? Okay, so in the system,
I said,
Mm-hmm.
I said you are a chatbot who teaches English, and said English here.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's a wrap. We have a library. If I call you out on LinkedIn, don't freak out. That's just because you've been part of this effort, and thank you, Elvic. Appreciate it. Just open an issue in the issue area that says, create a folder with examples, because that's how we can provide a bunch of examples for people to be able to use this library. But yeah, 3 hours, 10 minutes, you made it. Everyone participated. Everyone worked. Everyone did something today. You worked half a day, basically, all of you today. Tomorrow's off. I'm going to give you Monday off. Kick off again Tuesday. Next sprint is going to be the retrieve all models. It's going to be really easy because we're not really posting anything. So there's no mapping. There's no mapping of any kind. All that you're doing is just sending a call, and you're getting all the models that belong to that particular account that you have. We need to think a little bit about, how we're going to scale out. So I'm going to talk like the next session that's going to be on Tuesday. It's going to be a lot about, hey, how do I basically, scale this work without people stepping on each other's toes? As you can see, because we're building this according to the standard, it's impossible to step on someone else's toe, because every broker has its own entity. Every service has its own entity. Every service has its own exceptions. It's impossible for engineers to kind of, the only place where you're going to be...
Give me a week. I'll figure it out.
The only place where we're going to be stepping on each other's toes are the minimal things like the OpenAI client. We're going to be stepping on each other's toes there, but it's not a concern at all. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you all so very, very much. This has been great work. I think we are down to about 4 or 5 other sprints, which is 4 or 5 other features. And then from there onwards, we have given the world a standard compliant test-driven. More important than this, you give the world a story of how code is being written, how people can come together literally from every corner on earth to make things like that work. I appreciate you all. Okay. Thank you all so much. Take care. Now go crash and sleep for like 18 hours straight. Talk to you later. Take care.
See you.
See ya.